Chapter 3243. But Xin Yan was a little jealous that two big stars were living in Lin Yi's house. She didn't think much of it when Meng Yao and Shu were there, but two other women moving in all of a sudden. Xin Yan didn't feel comfortable at all, but she didn't say anything. She knew that Lin Yi was a loyal person, and Feng Shipian was his follower. Lin Yi couldn't reject him when he asked to protect Su Shirhan. But Xin Yan wasn't a scheming girl. She said impulsively, "Why don't I move back as well?" This time, it was Lin Yi's turn to be startled. He didn't think that Xin Yan would make such a request. To tell the truth, Lin Yi approved of Xin Yan going back. After all, they were used to living here. Xin Yan, Yao Yao, and Shu got along well. Now, although Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi were at home, they were still a bit lacking compared to Shu. Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi were in the same room, and Yushu was alone in the room. She would be lonely, and Lin Yi thought that Shu would be quite happy if Xin Yan went back. What I mean is, aren't you Earth Class Early Phase Peak? If I help you, will you be able to break through to Earth Class Mid-Phase in a short amount of time? If you reach Earth Class Mid-Phase, you might be able to kill Sky Class Late Phase Peak in one hit. At that time, you won't have to worry. Xin Yan quickly explained. Actually, that was what she was thinking. That won't do. You know your body's condition. Right now, you're relying on the jade grass to maintain your body. But if I absorb more of your energy, your life will be in danger. Lin Yi shook his head decisively. It's good for you to come back and accompany Shu. Otherwise, Yao Yao will be very lonely after leaving. Man, you're right. I didn't think that Yao Yao was an inheritor as well. She left just like that. Xin Yan was emotional. She didn't think that Yao Yao would leave the villa in the blink of an eye. Xin Yan didn't say anything after hearing Lin Yi's rejection. After all, she couldn't change Lin Yi's decision. Xin Yan wanted to help Lin Yi, but she didn't want to cause trouble for Lin Yi. If her life was in danger, Lin Yi would do anything to help her. That wasn't what Xin Yan wanted. Then come back with me tonight. Lin Yi smiled. This time, Xiaolong won't come to your house anymore. Ha! Xin Yan smiled happily as well. The exam questions were easy for Lin Yi. Lin Yi had the right to be exempted, but he was just accompanying Xin Yan. Lin Yi's appearance pleased Boss Bai as well. Lin Yi had his privileges, but as a disciple, he had to follow the rules. Boss Bai was happy to see that. But what Lin Yi didn't expect was that on the second day after Xin Yan moved into the villa, Lin Yi received a call from Yang Qiqi. Bai Weiduo walked over after the exam, excited to see Lin Yi. "I say, Lin bro, where have you been all this time? I haven't seen you around, and my grandpa won't tell me?" Bai Weiduo asked curiously. "Haha, it's nothing. There's a guest here, and I've been busy with her stuff." Lin Yi said. "I see." Bai Weiduo nodded. "What are you planning to do this holiday?" "Himei Wei and I are planning to go sight. Are you coming?" Himei Wei was the one who suggested that Bai Weiduo come to Lin Yi. According to Bai Weiduo's thinking, Lin Yi must be very busy, and Lin Yi might not have the time. But Bai Weiduo said that they were bros, and it'd be more fun with more people. So, Bai Weiduo decided to give it a try. "Oh, where are you guys going then?" Lin Yi was pressed for time, but Bai Weiduo was one of his best friends back in university, especially the grandson of Professor Bai. Lin Yi had a good relationship with him, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to go out with him if possible. "We're planning to go to Southeast Asia. It's warmer there," Bai Weiduo said. Himei Wei said that we're not familiar with that place, and it'd be more interesting if we had a few friends. "If you're free, would you like to go too?" Wang Xinyan blushed and turned to look at Lin Yi, but her eyes were filled with anticipation. Perhaps she wanted to go with Lin Yi? "Let me check the time." Lin Yi knew that Su Shirhan might not be in danger for the time being, but the orphanage's matter still made Lin Yi cautious. Who knew if Feng Tianhu would go crazy and find someone to deal with Su Shirhan or the dean? "Okay, if you want to go together, give me a call." Bai Weiduo knew that Lin Yi was busy, so he didn't force it. Lin Yi said goodbye to Bai Weiduo and returned to the villa with Wang Xinyan. Wang Xinyan was a little shy when she arrived at the familiar entrance. She knew that she would see Shu when she entered the door, but what should she say when Shu asked her why she came back? Could she say that she missed Lin Yi and wanted to sleep with Lin Yi? That would be too embarrassing, and Wang Xinyan couldn't say it. "Oh, Xinyan sis, you're back. Yushu didn't know if she saw Wang Xinyan from the room or heard the car, but she ran out of the villa and said excitedly. Wang Xinyan was a little shy and awkward at first, but Yushu's words helped her out. Wang Xinyan suddenly felt like she had returned home. "Shu, I'm so happy to see you. My body wasn't very good recently, so I didn't come back. I only found out today that Yao Yao had left. I felt bad that I couldn't send her off." Wang Xinyan sighed and said quietly. Meng Yao was still here the last time she came. There's no other way. Everyone has their own mission. Maybe Shu will leave one day, and then Shield Bro will be taken care of by Xinyan's sis. Yushu smiled. Because Yushu said it with a smile, Wang Xinyan didn't think that Yushu was telling the truth. She thought that Yushu was joking, and her face turned red. "Shu, don't make fun of me." Chapter 32:44. In actuality, Yushu was feeling the same way. Meng Yao was gone, and Lin Yi knew her secret. Sometimes, she would drop her dumb facade. When she was alone with Lin Yi, she wouldn't make a fuss. She would read quietly in her room or watch TV in the living room, and she wouldn't do anything stupid. She didn't need to do it for Lin Yi to see, and she didn't need to hide her loneliness and confusion in front of Lin Yi. Meng Yao was gone, and she might have to leave as well. She didn't know what her life would be like in the future. She didn't know if she would have a chance to live after this Heaven Stage Island plan. Would she have a chance to be with Lin Yi, Meng Yao, Xiao Xiao, and Tang Yin again? Yushu didn't have a shred of confidence. Sometimes, the prophecy didn't work. The roulette of fate wasn't in her hands. Even Shield Bro, who she had high hopes for, was only a small part of this grand plan. The Heaven Stage Island project, the gathering, and getting to know each other before the inheritance seemed to be a very big game of chess. Yushu didn't know who the players behind this chess game were. Perhaps she and Lin Yi were both pawns, or perhaps Lin Yi was the pawn that could turn the tides of the game. Everything was unknown. Yushu couldn't be happy every time she thought about it. That moment was near. Wang Xinyan moved into the villa smoothly. Shirhan had heard about Wang Xinyan from Yushu before, and she knew that Wang Xinyan was Lin Yi's girlfriend. She didn't have much of an intention to fight for Wang Xinyan. Shirhan did have feelings for Wang Xinyan, but she didn't dare do anything disrespectful in front of Wang Xinyan. She could tell that Lin Yi cared a lot about Wang Xinyan, but she didn't know why. At night, Wang Xinyan went upstairs to sleep with Shu. Lin Yi wanted to hug Xinyan to sleep as well, since she was the only girl he was close to, but Lin Yi was afraid that he'd accidentally suck Xinyan's energy away during his training, so he gave up. But what Lin Yi didn't expect was that the second day after Xinyan moved into the villa, Lin Yi got a call from Yang Chi-Chi. "Lin Yi, bro, I've asked around for you. There's a blue crystal being auctioned at Kristen's auction house on the 20th of this month. I've already gotten the rights to it. When are you coming over?" Chi-Chi and Lin Yi were much closer now that they'd gotten to know each other. Before, Yang Chi-Chi had helped Lin Yi look for the blue crystal's whereabouts purely out of gratitude, but now it was her own business. She called Lin Yi the first thing she heard. "There's news of his whereabouts? That's great." Lin Yi had always been concerned about crafting the Jade Space. Other than practicing, he could only focus on crafting. He didn't know how to concoct pills, and he didn't know how to do mending either. He just focused on crafting the Jade Space. Plus, the space was a little small right now. Lin Yi was pretty much done with the valuables he'd brought with him, and he didn't have enough space for the small stuff. Lin Yi had to leave some space to maneuver in case of emergencies, right? When are you coming over?" Chi-Chi's words were filled with tenderness towards Lin Yi. The girl who used to grit her teeth at the mention of Lin Yi was gone. "The 20th, a few more days. I'll go as soon as I can," Lin Yi said. "Right. I heard you're working as a bodyguard for a celebrity?" Lil Jio said that she's arranged for an entertainment company to invite her over to discuss a movie. Chi-Chi said, a movie?" Lin Yi blinked. Su Shirhan had always been in the music industry, and although she was a heavenly queen, she didn't have much in the film industry. This was because the ancient House Feng's influence was limited, and there weren't many people who could handle this. So, Shirhan had always been restricted in the music industry. Yeah, this company's special effects and professional post-production are done by Lil Jio's disciples. They have a lot of things to ask of Lil Jio, so the chairman of the company happily agreed to this request. With that, Chi-Chi said the name of a famous company. Lin, he was a little surprised, but it made sense after thinking about it. This kind of entertainment company needed special effects and post-production. They needed to be unique, and they needed to hire professionals or outsource the work. After all, everyone had their own specialties. A company might be good at making movies, but the post-production might not be as good as these professional companies. That's good news. With this company supporting Shirhan, her acting career can take another step forward. Lenny nodded. Chi-Chi, on the other hand, didn't really mind the unknown stars. She didn't really care how many women Lin he had around him. This had to do with the environment she grew up in. Her father had a few wives, and one of them was a celebrity. Chi-Chi didn't really care. As long as Lin he was her bro, that was enough. After putting down the phone, Lin he gathered everyone in the living room. Lin he was going out, and naturally, he had to tell Shu and Xinyan. Lin, you're going to Europe. Xinyan was a little disappointed after hearing Lin Yi's words. It seemed that the plan to go to Southeast Asia with Lin Yi was ruined. Lin Yi definitely couldn't go. Yeah, Xinyan, why don't you go with Shu? Lin Yi suggested. Xinyan was a little tempted, and she turned to Yushu with anticipation. Yushu wanted to go as well, but she couldn't. Yui had sent a message that the day of the plan was getting closer and closer. The people behind Yui had been talking frequently recently, and Yushu might have to leave soon. I'm not going, Xinyan sis. You and Shilbro go have fun. Don't worry about me. I'll stay at home. Maybe Yao Yao sis will come back. Yushu found an excuse for herself. You're not going. Xinyan was a little disappointed. If Yushu wasn't going, then she couldn't go. Then I'll stay at home with you. Linny, why don't you go with Han? Chapter 32:45. Su Shirhan, on the other hand, was confused. She didn't know if she should stay in the entertainment industry. She had found her mother, and her goal of becoming a superstar was achieved. These days, she had lost her goal in life. Linny, I don't know what to do in the future. The reason I became a superstar was to find my mother. Now that my mother has been found, is there any meaning for me to continue being a superstar? Su Shirhan hesitated for a long time and finally said what was in her heart. Xiaohan, I understand your feelings. Lin, he wasn't surprised. He smiled and said, actually, everyone has a goal when they do something. For example, I came to Songshan to protect Yao Yao. But later, I was no longer Yao Yao's bodyguard, but we became good friends. Until now, she is my girlfriend. What I do has exceeded the scope of work. It has become a kind of life. And you should be the same. Although you have achieved your goal of becoming a superstar, think about it. If you don't become a superstar, what will you do? You can't stay at home every day, right? Su Shirhan heard Lin Yi's words and was stunned. She nodded. Yeah, if she didn't become a superstar, what would she do? Actually, you still have a goal in life. Your goal is to work hard to earn more money. Lin Yi smiled and said, your mother put all her energy into developing the orphanage. Of course, this is one of the reasons why she looked for you in the beginning. But now, she has fallen in love with this career. Her orphanage needs money. If you can help her, I believe the old dean will be very happy, right? Yeah. Su Shirhan heard Lin Yi's words, and her eyes lit up. She never thought about these things before. Now that she thought about it, it was true. Her mother needed a lot of money, and the more prosperous her career was, the more money she could earn. At this moment, Su Shirhan found her goal in life again. She couldn't help but feel grateful to Lin Yi. Thank you, Lin Yi. You are really a benefactor in my life. I am very happy to meet you. With you by my side, I feel very happy. Shirhan's confession was very subtle, but everyone understood. Lin Yi wasn't surprised. He looked at Wang Xinyan, then at Shu, and sighed in relief when he didn't see any special expression on their faces. It seemed that Shu had a lot on her mind and wouldn't reject anyone like she used to. Xinyan, on the other hand, had always been a quiet person. Even if she had something to say, she wouldn't say it aloud. She'd just accept it silently. The only time she resisted was with Zhao Long. So even a girl with a good personality could have a rebellious moment. Then get ready. We'll leave for Europe in a few days. Linny nodded, and then he gazed at Cheng Yi and said, You can come with me. I can help you open up the overseas market, but you must give me half of your earnings as compensation. Lin knew that Cheng Yi worked for Feng Tianhu. Her income was taken by Feng Tianhu, so he didn't hesitate to ask for half of her income. Let me think about it. Cheng Yi naturally knew that Lin Yi was taking money from her to subsidize the orphanage. Of course, she agreed in her heart, but she was afraid that Feng Tianhu wouldn't agree. Giving money to Lin Yi was better than giving it to Feng Tianhu. She needed to communicate with Feng Tianhu first. Shirhan was stunned. She didn't think that Lin Yi would extort money from Cheng Yi. She and Cheng Yi were good sisters, and she didn't really care what Cheng Yi used the money for. She just felt that Lin Yi asking for half of her income was a bit too much. However, she couldn't say anything. After all, Lin Yi had his own considerations, and without Lin Yi's help, they couldn't open up the overseas market by themselves. After Cheng Yi returned to her room, she dialed Feng Tianhu's number. Is there any news? Feng Tianhu quickly picked up the phone and asked. It's like this. Lin Yi is going to Europe. Lin Yi is going to meet a friend, and his friend has a lot of power over there. He can convince XXX Entertainment Company to cooperate with Su Shirhan and let Su Shirhan be the main character and make Su Shirhan famous. Cheng Yi said. TSK, this smelly bitch is so lucky. She can rely on such a big backer, even though she's a bitch. Feng Tianhu was jealous and cursed. He knew what kind of company XXX Entertainment Company was. It was a super money-making kingdom. If they really supported Su Shirhan, then it would only be a matter of time before Shirhan became famous. At the same time, Feng Tianhu was a bit shocked. Was Lin Yi really a normal solo cultivator? How could he have so much power overseas? To be able to affect the decisions of such a big company, he must not be a normal person. Thinking up to here, Feng Tianhu was a bit unsatisfied. He asked the Black Horse Society to do something, but not only did it not work, he also wasted a large amount of deposit. He needed money right now, so he said to Cheng Yi, didn't you also do it with Lin Yi? He didn't give you any benefits? Or are you not as good as that bitch Su Shirhan? The time I spent with Lin Yi was too short, but with my hard work, Lin Yi also said that he can let the other party support me, but he wants to take 50% of the income as a reward. Cheng Yi said. 50% is a bit much, but it's not bad that you can get this. Not bad. Cheng Yi, it seems that you didn't let Lin Yi do it for nothing. You have some ability. Feng Tianhu was instantly happy. This 50% was also for free. If Lin Yi didn't support Cheng Yi, she wouldn't even be able to cooperate with that company. She didn't even get 50%, so Feng Tianhu was very happy about the extra income. Listening to Feng Tianhu's vulgar words, Cheng Yi frowned slightly and sighed in her heart. It would be good if Lin Yi really did it, but then should I agree to it? Cheng Yi asked. Of course, why wouldn't you agree? Hurry up and agree. If there's anything good in the future, you can make the decision yourself. If you always come back to discuss with me, Lin Yi will be suspicious, Feng Tianhu said. Okay, I understand. Cheng Yi nodded. Chapter 3246. 3 days later, Lin Yi brought Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi to a place in Europe called Butterfly Town. Lin Yi spent a part of his childhood here. Stepping on this land again, Lin Yi was filled with emotions. The plane slowly landed in the city closest to Butterfly Town. This city was also the city where the auction house was located, Kristen City. In fact, Kristen City was very far from Butterfly Town. The most convenient way to get to Butterfly Town was by water, but it was slower, and Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi might not be able to adapt to the life on a boat. So, Lin Yi bought the plane ticket to Kristen City directly. Of course, the auction would be held here. Butterfly Town was the place Lin Yi planned to go to after the auction. Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi would be discussing business cooperation at that time, and Lin Yi could follow Yang Qiqi back to Butterfly Town to have a look. As soon as they got out of the airport, Lin Yi saw Yang Qiqi's cool little black silhouette. She was standing at the arrival gate, looking over anxiously. Seeing Lin Yi, she ran over happily. Lin Yi, big bro. With that, she gave Lin Yi a hug. She hugged Lin Yi like an octopus, not letting go. Yang Chi-Chi was a practitioner, and she didn't care much about how the outside world looked at her. Plus, she was sure that Lin Yi was her big bro, so it was natural for them to be intimate. After all, Lin Yi and Yang Chi-Chi had a lot of physical contact when they were young. It was nothing. Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi had never met Yang Chi-Chi before, but they knew on the plane that Yang Chi-Chi was Lin Yi's childhood sweetheart, so they didn't have any hostility towards her. Xiao-Chi, we have friends here. You're hugging me like a tree bear. What about the others? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Yang Chi-Chi listened to Lin Yi and jumped down from Lin Yi. She turned to Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi, embarrassed. You guys are Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi, right? Welcome. It's nice to meet you guys. I have an aunt who's also a celebrity, so I think we'll have a good time together. Yang Chi-Chi clearly thought that Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi were Lin Yi's women. Otherwise, why would Lin Yi protect them and help them arrange the show? Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi were a little surprised and a little shy. Chi-Chi's words made two things clear. One was that her father seemed to have multiple women, and she herself didn't mind the situation. Second, Yang Chi-Chi said that her aunt had a celebrity as well. She was treating them as Lin Yi's women. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he didn't explain. This kind of thing didn't need to be explained. Su Shirhan had already expressed her feelings, and Cheng Yi was naked. It was impossible to say that there was nothing between them. But Lin Yi hadn't given them a clear answer yet. Lin Yi's future was complicated. Although it looked like Lin Yi's enemies were hiding, it was all built on a lie. Once this lie was exposed, Lin Yi's good days would come to an end. So, Lin Yi couldn't promise Su Shirhan anything. All right, Chi-Chi, let's not talk about this for now. Have you booked the hotel? Lin Yi asked. Yeah, the best hotels in this city are Kristen Hotel and Douglas Hotel. Kristen Hotel and Kristen Auction are together. They're both part of the Overseas Practitioner Trading Association. Yang Chi-Chi explained. Douglas Hotel, our family has shares in it. It's more convenient to stay there, but it's not good for getting information about the auction. Yang Chi-Chi and Lin Yi talked about the pros and cons of the two. The Yang Chi-Chi right now was no longer that cool and silly girl. She was a smart girl, and Lin Yi was a little surprised. In actuality, Yang Chi-Chi had grown up a long time ago. It was only because of little Gio that she had to participate in the trials and the marketplace again and again, becoming a punching bag. After all, her strength level was there, and in the world of practitioners, strength was everything. If you didn't have strength, no matter where you came from, people would look down on you. It was different in the common world. Yang Chi-Chi had a lot of power here, and things like this were easy to handle. Just like Lin Yi, back when he was weak, no one in House Yu's auction would put him in their eyes. Normal, noble houses could strut around in front of Lin Yi, but now, even the ancients would be scared of Lin Yi, wouldn't they? The Overseas Practitioners Association. Lin Yi frowned. He didn't think that Kristen auction would be the Overseas Practitioners Association's business. The grudge between Lin Yi and the association was quite deep. He'd killed one of their elders, and while there was no news yet, it was likely that they'd put him on their blacklist. He just didn't know if the people at the auction would recognize him. But no matter what, Lin Yi had to be careful. He didn't want the association to know that he was here, and it'd affect the auction plan. That's right. Only the Overseas Cultivators Association has these rare and strange materials. Basically, they won't appear in other auctions. Yang Chi-Chi said, the association has their own channels to get these things. This is their business in the common world? Lin Yi nodded. Yes, after all, training requires funds, and these businesses in the common world can make up for that. Yang Chi-Chi said, how about this, Chi-Chi? Don't write my name when you sign up. You sign up under your own name. Lin Yi said after some thought. It'd be better if he didn't reveal his identity. It'd be troublesome if someone knew who he was. Oh, all right. Chi-Chi was a little confused, but she nodded anyway. It wasn't a big deal. She was just curious. Lin Yi bro, do you know about this association? Yeah, a little. Lin Yi waved his hand. Just keep it a secret. All right. Chi-Chi didn't ask anymore. Chapter 32:47. Lin Yi had a room to himself. Su Shirhan and Chung Yi shared a room, and Yang Qiqi booked a room at Kristen Hotel. She wanted to find out how many people were interested in the blue crystal. Lin Yi was determined to get this time, and Yang Qiqi wanted to find out. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll win every battle. And so Lin Yi didn't ask her to stay and let her go. After Lin Yi settled down, he brought Su Shirhan and Chung Yi to the hotel for a quick meal before going back to their room to rest. Since there were people from the association here, Lin Yi didn't dare be careless. Before the auction started, he decided to explain things in simple terms. 3 days later, when the auction officially started, Lin Yi brought Su Shirhan and Chung Yi out of the hotel. At this time, Yang Qiqi was already waiting in front of the hotel. Yang Qiqi drove a business car, very low-key and unassuming. Evidently, she'd listened to Lin Yi's words to keep a low profile. Lin Yi brought Su Shirhan and Chung Yi to the car, and Yang Qiqi started the car and headed to Kristen Auction House. In the car, there was only Yang Qiqi, no driver or assistant. Kristen Auction House was built very luxuriously, similar to House Yu's auction house. Yang Qiqi's car was stopped at the entrance, but after Yang Qiqi showed them an invitation, the security at the entrance let her in. Yang Qiqi parked the car in the underground parking lot of the auction house and got out with Lin Yi. But at this time, a red sports car stopped near Yang Qiqi's car, and 2 young men got out of the car. One was Asian, and the other was European. Yang Qiqi frowned when she saw the two, but she knew that if she left without saying goodbye, these two would definitely suspect her. Yang Qiqi wasn't too afraid of anything, but her family's power was much weaker than these 2 young men. Her real identity, after all, didn't mean much with her father's departure. 7th sis, you're here for the auction as well? The Asian man walked up to Qiqi quickly. However, his eyes were locked on Su Shirhan's face. Obviously, he was shocked by Su Shirhan's beauty. He Tianzu, young master I really didn't think that you'd be participating in an auction like this. Qiqi wasn't trying to start a conversation. She really was surprised. He Tianzu was the son of the Overseas Cultivators Association's president, He Luonan. The Overseas Cultivators Association was an organization established in the past decade. Its purpose was to bring these overseas cultivators together. Gathering together, they formed an organization similar to an ancient sect, and He Luonan was a peak late-stage heaven rank master. Next to He Tianzu was a young man of European descent. His name was Frio Kristen, and he was the son of the vice president of the Overseas Cultivators Association, Elder Kristen. As for why the businesses of the Overseas Cultivators Association were named after the vice president, the reason was simple. He Luo didn't like doing business, and Kristen's family was originally a business family, so he used their name to do business. The effect would be better. Otherwise, as powerful as the Overseas Cultivators Association was, they wouldn't be able to go up against the local powers. They might as well use the connections of Kristen's family to do this. Since He Tianzu was He Luonan's son, he could just take whatever he wanted from the auction. There was no need for him to participate in the auction. This was also the reason why Qiqi was confused. I couldn't get used to training in the association, so I came out for a stroll. Look, something good happened. 7th sis, aren't you going to introduce me to this beautiful lady? He Tianzu looked at Shirhan, not bothering to hide the adoration in his eyes. Perhaps it was due to the influence of the overseas culture, but He Tianzu's way of expressing his love wasn't subtle at all. Lin Yi slightly frowned. Although the 2 guys in front of him looked young, their strength wasn't low. This He Tianzu actually had the strength of a peak late phase sky class. Of course, it was also possible that he was already very old and was just maintaining his youthful appearance. After all, after stepping into sky class, one's appearance wouldn't change anymore. The other European young man, on the other hand, was sky class mid-stage. This was very rare, and so Lin Yi didn't need to guess to know that these 2 belonged to the Overseas Cultivators Association as well, and their positions weren't low either. Lin Yi wanted to avoid them, but he didn't think that He Tianzu would be so directly expressing his love to Shirhan. This made Lin Yi feel helpless. But at this time, Lin Yi really couldn't fight with them. This was their turf, and if they fought, they wouldn't be able to escape. Even if they escaped, the blue crystal would be gone. Yang Qiqi's face froze. She didn't think that Yi Tianzu would make a request like this. She was in a difficult position, but after some hesitation, she still said, "This is the celebrity, Miss Shirhan. This time, she's here to discuss business with XXX Entertainment Company. She'll be leaving soon." Yang Qiqi wanted to say that Shirhan was just a passerby and would leave soon, but evidently Yi Tianzu didn't understand. He said, "I was wondering why Miss Su was so pretty. So you're a celebrity. XXX Entertainment Company may be famous, but there are too many big names there. In Frio Onu's house, there's also a film company, Kristen Entertainment Company. It's not as famous as XXX, but I think that if you want to promote a newcomer, it'll be very easy." Last year, the newcomer who won the Best Actress Award in XXX film was supported by Kristen Entertainment Company. Since Miss Su is here for business, you have to consider the promotion of both sides. On this side, I can guarantee that all the resources will be used for Miss Su alone. I'll think about it. Thank you, young Master He. Su Shirhan was, after all, a celebrity. She had seen the world. After a short moment of shock, she smiled and said politely, "But XXX Company was also introduced by my friend. I need to think about it carefully." "That's good. Right. Miss Su, are you here for the auction as well?" Yi Tianzu wasn't stupid. Since Shirhan didn't agree directly, he wouldn't force her. There were many ways to pick up girls, so he changed the topic. Chapter 3248. Are you really just looking around? Miss Su, what do you like? Don't hold back. I'm a shareholder of this company. If you like something, tell me beforehand, and I'll reserve it for you. Otherwise, who knows who will get it when the competition starts? Yi Tianzu said, "Miss Su, you don't have to hide it. Since you're going to XXX Company to discuss a collaboration, and you're in a hurry, there's no way you'll be staying here for an auction. I'm sure Miss Su has your eyes on something here, right?" Shirhan didn't expect Yi Tianzu to be this hard to deal with. This guy was a pervert, but he wasn't stupid. Qiqi's explanation only made him more persistent. But what could Shirhan say? She was only here to accompany Lin Yi. The only thing she knew was that Lin Yi wanted a blue crystal, but she couldn't tell him. What if Yi Tianzu tried to stop him? That wouldn't be worth it. Lin Yi was a bit impatient. Why was this Yi Tianzu so hard to deal with? If he knew that he was going to bid for a blue crystal, wouldn't there be some resistance? With that thought, Lin Yi could only say, "I dragged Xiaoan to come with me, and I helped to contact XXX Entertainment Company. So, Xiaoan was actually waiting for me." Lin Yi didn't want to be in the limelight, but he had no choice. Shirhan was a celebrity, but her social experience was much less than this person in front of him. This Yi Tianzu was very hard to deal with, and Shirhan wasn't his opponent at all. "Oh!" Yi Tianzu looked at Lin Yi, a flash of unfriendliness in his eyes, but he still said politely, "Mister, you are? Mr. He, you're from the association, right? What's your status in the association?" Lin Yi didn't answer, but asked back. He needed to find a reason to calm Yi Tianzu down, or he wouldn't be able to attend the auction. "Brother Yi, this is young Master He, the son of the association's chairman, Heluan." Qiqi introduced to Lin Yi, but didn't say Lin Yi's name. "Ah, so it's the chairman's son. Nice to meet you. I came here this time to discuss a business deal with President He." Lin Yi smiled and extended his hand. "I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Lin Yi, the sales manager of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. I'm here to establish a trade relationship with the Overseas Cultivators Association to sell our products, the first and second level automatic cauldrons." "Oh." Yi Tianzu stared blankly for a moment. He also knew about the first grade automatic cauldron. He was also prepared to send people to investigate and see if he could buy some in bulk. However, the death of an elder made the Overseas Cultivators Association temporarily not dare to act blindly without thinking. They were currently investigating the background of the murderer, Lin Yi. Since this person had the ability to kill a heaven stage expert, he was definitely not a nobody. However, he didn't expect that the Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company would send someone before the association even sent anyone. This surprised He Tianzu. He was even more surprised when he heard Lin Yi say that there were second-level automatic cauldrons. His attitude towards Lin Yi became warmer, and he immediately shook hands with Lin Yi. Mr. Ling, does your company still sell second-level automatic cauldrons? It's about to go on the market. Lin Yi nodded, but it's limited. The current sales channel is only through the auctions of the Cultivators Association. However, I'm here this time to directly supply a few to the association. After all, you're far away from here, and it's not convenient for you to participate in the auctions. Our company also wants to establish a long-term business relationship with the association. Lin Yi spoke with conviction. After all, he was familiar with the first and second cauldrons, so he was able to trick He Tianzu in one fell swoop. Thank you so much. He Tianzu smiled and said, Then I welcome Mr. Ling to visit the Overseas Cultivators Association after the auction. This is my name card. As he said that, He Tianzu handed a card to Lin Yi. Lin Yi took a look at it. There was only He Tianzu's name, a contact number, and an address. There was nothing else. Obviously, the address was the address of the association. I left my name card in the hotel. This time, I'm just following Sister Xiaoqi to experience the auction here. Lin Yi kept the name card and said, It's fine. He Tianzu waved his hand. Mr. Ling, you and Miss Su are... Xiaohan is our company's spokesperson. Naturally, Lin Yi couldn't say anything else. He Tianzu had just calmed down, and there was no telling what he was going to do next, catching Lin Yi off guard. All right, then you're welcome to visit, Mr. Ling. I'll be leaving now. He Tianzu understood the gravity of the situation and knew that this was not the time to get on Lin Yi's bad side. This guy was here to give them a treasure, and the association needed it. If they were to piss him off, then the automatic cauldron would be gone. So, He Tianzu decided to give up for now. Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief, but didn't let his guard down at all. He planned to leave this place as soon as the auction was over. After entering the auction, Lin Yi followed Yang Qiqi to the VIP room. Anyone with a certain background would have their own VIP room, but even if it was just Lin Yi's group, Lin Yi still checked the room carefully to make sure there weren't any surveillance devices. Xiaoqi, you're in contact with this association? Yeah, Lin Yi bro, I'm a member of the association. All the overseas practitioners are members here, and they don't need to do much. All they need to do is register, and they get a certain amount of elixirs and treasures every month. It's a public welfare organization, I guess. Lin Yi nodded. It seemed like Yi Luodong really knew how to win people's hearts, gathering all these practitioners under his banner. He didn't need them to do anything right now, but in a critical moment, they could be very useful. And after Tang Yuqi became a heaven rank expert, it was only natural that the Overseas Cultivators Association wanted to keep him there. After all, Tang Yuqi had obtained a lot of cultivation resources from the Overseas Cultivators Association. It could be said that without the Overseas Cultivators Association, there wouldn't be a heaven-ranked Tang Yuqi. Chapter 3249. But the association didn't give him any face at all. They couldn't even talk about it. To put it bluntly, strength was the only thing that mattered in the world of cultivation. But if Lin Yi had known that the auction house was the association's territory, Lin Yi wouldn't have come at all. Even if he did, he wouldn't have used the identity of Lin Yi. He'd have put on a disguise like 1,000 silk mask, or just let Qiqi show up. Who knew that the association would be built right in front of Qiqi's house? But since he was here, he couldn't hide anymore. Lin Yi had no choice but to continue. I see. Why didn't you mention this before? Lin Yi sighed. Before? You didn't ask before, Lin Yi bro. What's wrong, Lin Yi bro? It seems like you have some sort of grudge with the association. Qiqi wasn't an idiot. She could already guess what was going on. That's right. I killed one of their elders. Lin Yi said. Ah, Elder Chun? Qiqi blinked. Evidently, she knew about this as well. Qiqi, you know about this? Lin Yi was a bit surprised. He didn't expect Qiqi to know about this. All the members of the association know about it. Elder Wang came back alone, and Elder Chun, a sky-class mid-phase peak, was killed. They called us for a meeting to discuss what we should do, but we don't know much about that side, and I'm not a core member, so I don't even know who killed Elder Chun or how. I'm only attending the meeting to warn everyone not to mess with the ancient sections. Chi-Chi said. Lenny nodded. It's fine, we're already here. We'll leave this place as soon as the auction is over. All right then. About the cooperation with XXX Entertainment. Chi-Chi hesitated. Forget it. We'll go straight to Island X, Lenny said after a sigh. Shirhan and Chung-E didn't say anything else. After all, their safety was more important. They could only postpone the money-making business. Who told that he Tianzu to fall in love with Shirhan? Soon the auction began. Just like the other auctions, after the host explained the rules of the auction proceeded smoothly. Lenny looked at the auction guide. All of the items were treasures. Of course, these were for normal people, things that could extend one's lifespan and cure illnesses. There were basically no items that were beneficial for training. However, thinking about it, it made sense. The Overseas Cultivators Association probably bought some elixirs in bulk from somewhere. However, the elixirs that were useful for cultivation were kept for themselves. These elixirs were just accessories that they bought to generate income. These are things that he didn't care about. There was quite a bit of competition, but it was normal. Most people who came to this auction were normal people. These people were after these treasures that could extend one's lifespan. Finally, it was time for the item that he needed, the blue crystal. He took a deep breath and nodded to Chi-Chi, indicating that he would be the one to bid. He wanted to keep a low profile and try not to show his face. The next item is a blue crystal, a very rare gem. The host introduced the blue crystal. Of course, he didn't know that this thing could be used for crafting. Of course, even if he knew, it wouldn't have mattered. Blacksmiths were gone now. Even if this thing was used by blacksmiths, it would only be a decoration. The people who came here to participate in the auction were basically here for heavenly materials and earthly treasures like longevity elixirs. These people didn't care much about gemstones and crystals. These luxurious items could be found in any other auction, and they didn't come here to study them. Therefore, when the blue crystal was taken out, it didn't attract too much attention. Even those who had been bidding for it just now picked up their teacups and prepared to drink some water to relax and welcome the next round of bidding. Lin-E, on the other hand, was paying close attention to this blue crystal. 8 million. A voice rang out. The starting price of this blue crystal was 5 million. In auctions like this, the starting price wasn't high. It was all about the bidding. But there weren't many people who wanted this blue crystal. In fact, the only reason they brought it out was to relax a little. They didn't expect to sell it for a good price. 9 million. Another person also called out his own price. However, after this person called out 9 million, the previous person didn't raise the price anymore. Obviously, he wasn't determined to get it. Someone else bid higher than him, so he gave up. Perhaps he was just a scammer. His purpose was to prevent the auction from having an awkward silence and an unsold item. 10 million. Chi-Chi called out. She could tell that the auctioneer was getting ready to ask for the first time. Evidently, no one was interested in this item anymore. Chi-Chi's bid surprised the man who was bidding 9 million. He looked at Chi-Chi's room and gave up right away. The blue crystal wasn't very pure, and there were a lot of impurities in it. It was a huge discount on the value of the crystal. As a result, 10 million wasn't a bad price, but an item of this quality wasn't very useful. Of course, for collectors and engravers, a flaw in a crystal was a fatal wound. But it didn't matter to Lin-E. He used it for crafting, and this blue crystal was just a supplementary material. He needed to grind it into powder, and the impurities wouldn't affect his usage at all. After Chi-Chi, no one else made a bid. The auctioneer raised his hammer as well. The guest from room 27 bids 10 million. Are there any higher bids? 10 million, going once. Just when Lin-E thought he had it, a familiar voice rang out. It made Lin-E frown. 12 million. The one who made the bid was He Tianzu, who he had met in the parking lot earlier. Chapter 3250. Evidently, He Tianzu had a purpose for doing this. Was he trying to go against Lin-E? Lin-E looked at Chi-Chi and nodded. 14 million. Chi-Chi called out again. 15 million. He Tianzu said. What was worth mentioning was that the prices here were all in euros, so 15 million was quite a high price. 17 million. Chi-Chi added another 2 million. 18 million. He Tianzhu didn't hesitate. 20 million. Chi-Chi added another 2 million. 21 million. He Tianzhu continued. Lenny took a deep breath. This He Tianzhu was pushing the price to over 20 million. In this way, it wasn't as simple as it seemed. The price had already exceeded those ordinary heavenly materials and earthly treasures by a lot. The guests present were also very puzzled and puzzled. How could such a broken blue crystal with impurities be so valuable? And there were people competing for it? Very few of these normal merchants knew who He Tianzhu was, since they were on a different level. He didn't interact much with them, but Frio Kristen, on the other hand, did interact with some of the merchants, but he wasn't the one bidding this time. Naturally, no one thought too much about it. Looking at Chi-Chi, Lin erased 3 fingers. 30 million. Chi-Chi understood what Lin was getting at. 40 million. This time, He Tianzhu also changed the previous method of increasing the price by 1 million and directly increased it by 10 million. 40 million wasn't a small amount. It made Lin Yi's mouth twitch. Linny had some money now, but it wasn't a lot. It was all invested in the orphanage and the second-level cauldrons. 50 million. Chi-Chi continued, giving Lin a reassuring look before whispering, I still have money here. 100 million. He Tianzhu simply did not bother to deal with it, and directly began to quote a large price. Even Chi-Chi, who had some money stashed away, was shocked by the price. Of course, this was for Lin Yi's auction. Chi-Chi didn't hesitate. 150 million. 300 million. He Tianzhu said faintly. Chi-Chi was about to continue when Lin Yi shook his head. It's fine. Give up. Ah? Chi-Chi blinked, not understanding why Lin Yi would give up just like that. I have some money stashed away, around 1 billion. If you can't do it, I can borrow from Lil Joe. It's not a matter of money. He Tianzhu is the boss of this auction house, and no matter what price he calls out, it's just money in his left pocket. He can call out however much he wants, buying under the company's name and selling under the company's name. He doesn't even need to pay a commission. It's just a formality. He could even call out 10 billion. Chi-Chi thought about it. It was true. This auction house belonged to He Tianzhu, and no matter how much she bid, she wouldn't be able to compete with him. And so, Chi-Chi didn't say anything and gave up. The guest in room 3 has bid 300 million. Are there any higher bids? 300 million, going once, going twice, going thrice. Sold. The auctioneer closed the auction. Let's go. There's no point in us staying here. Lin Yi stood up, and Chi-Chi, Shirhan, and Cheng Yi followed Lin Yi, leaving the room and heading to the elevator. Chi-Chi, Shirhan, and Cheng Yi didn't say anything else. They knew that Lin Yi didn't get the blue crystal, so he wasn't in a good mood. But there was nothing they could do about it. He Tianzhu's actions were unpredictable. The 4 of them took the elevator to the underground parking lot. Just as they were about to get into the car, the door of the elevator dedicated to the internal passage opened. Inside the elevator, He Tianzhu and Friano Kristen slowly walked out. He Tianzhu, on the other hand, was holding a box, smiling as he walked towards Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't understand what He Tianzhu was doing, but he politely stopped. He Tianzhu wasn't much a threat in his eyes. He was a sky-class late-phase peak, and with Lin Yi's current strength, even if he couldn't kill him instantly, he could still injure him when he was unprepared. But what would he do after that? There would be endless troubles, and he wouldn't even be able to escape from this city. Miss Sue, I'm sorry. I was bidding just to personally deliver this blue crystal to Miss Sue. He Tianzhu smiled and passed the box to Su Shirhan. He did this for Shirhan's sake. It didn't matter which of the 4 of them needed this crystal. Since he gave it to Shirhan, it was the same as leaving a good impression on Shirhan. Since Shirhan was the spokesperson of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, no matter what, he couldn't force her. If things went sour with Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, and they couldn't provide the first and second level cauldrons, then it wouldn't be worth it. So he changed his strategy using this method to make Shirhan owe him a favor, and things could be done step by step. Thank you. Shirhan hesitated, but still took the blue crystal. Shirhan didn't know what this thing was used for, but one thing was for sure. Lin Yi really needed it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come all the way here to participate in the auction. So even if Shirhan knew He Tianzu's intentions weren't pure, she still accepted it. Haha, Miss Su, then I won't bother you anymore. Go back and think about my proposal. I'll visit you later. He Tianzu smiled. With that, He Tianzu got into his sport car with Frio and left the parking lot. Lin Yi watched the sports car leave, and Chi-Chi and the others got into the MPV. Lin Yi said to Chi-Chi, "No need to go back to the hotel. Don't take anything, just drive away." Okay. Chi-Chi nodded and started the car. Inside the hotel, there were only some luggage and Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi's clothes. Although it was expensive, it was better to lose them than lose their lives. Young Chi-Chi got out of the auction and headed towards the highway, but she didn't get far before a red Ferrari overtook her from behind. It was He Tianzu's car. Chapter 32:51. Was it because of him or Su Shirhan? Maybe they were just passing by. However, He Tianzu's next move showed his purpose. The red sports car went straight to the front of Lin Yi's car, and from the front passenger seat, a person jumped out. This person was Frio Leono, a sky-class early phase. It was easy for him to stop a speeding car. It was absolutely impossible to kill him. How could a heaven stage expert be killed by a car? Not only would he not die, but the car would also be destroyed. So Lin Yi said, "Chi-Chi, stop the car." Actually, when Lin Yi said that, Chi-Chi was already slowing down. If the car was hit, she and Lin Yi were practitioners, so it wouldn't be a problem. But Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi would be in danger. Of course, she didn't know that Cheng Yi was also a practitioner. But Frio Leono didn't just stand there and wait for Lin Yi's car to come over. After he got off, he ran towards Lin Yi's car. Even if Chi-Chi stopped, it was useless. A sky class's speed was not to be underestimated. When Frio Leono rushed over, he suddenly kicked Lin Yi's car. There was a loud bang, and the car shook violently, flying toward the side of the road. "Careful!" Lin Yi shouted and quickly held Su Shirhan tightly, channeling the art of dragon mastery, using his chi to protect Su Shirhan. As for Chi-Chi and Cheng Yi, they were fine. Lin Yi didn't need to worry. Chi-Chi was a physical practitioner, and her body was stronger than spiritual practitioners. Cheng Yi was an earth class, too. Even if the car broke, they would be fine. After a series of violent bumps and rolls, the car rolled a couple of times on the gravel on the side of the road before coming to a stop. The body of the car was completely caved in, but Chi-Chi and Cheng Yi were fine. Shirhan, who was protected by Lin Yi, was fine as well. However, the next moment, Frio Leonor ran over and grabbed the deformed door of the minivan. He pulled it easily, and the door fell down. The next moment, Frio Leonor looked at Lin Yi and the others in the car mockingly. "Not dead yet?" Sure enough, the whole car is filled with cultivators. "You really can't judge a book by its cover." Frio said lightly, "Get out of the car and come back with us. If you surrender, I won't touch you for the time being. Otherwise, you will suffer." "Frio Leonor, what do you mean? Is this how you treat the customers of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company?" Lin Yi asked faintly, trying his luck. "Guessed?" Frio Leonor smiled coldly and said faintly, "Lin Yi, stop pretending. Do you think we didn't find out who you are?" In fact, Frio Leonor and He Tianzu just found out about Lin Yi's real identity. He Tianzu had reported Lin Yi and Su Shirhan's identity to his old man, He Luonan, and naturally, He Luonan had to investigate Lin Yi's background to see if he was from Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. In the end, Lin Yi's identity was revealed. Lin Yi was the murderer who killed Elder Chun, Lin Yi. Elder Wang recognized the person who was pretending to be Lin Yi immediately. So, He Luonan immediately called He Tianzu and told him not to act rashly. He had to stabilize Lin Yi first, and a large number of reinforcements would arrive soon. However, He Tianzu didn't do that. After receiving the call, he immediately chased after Lin Yi and was ready to make a move. He was young and rash. He He didn't believe that Lin Yi could kill Elder Chun in a second. From his perspective, it must be Elder Wang's fault. In order to avoid losing face, he exaggerated about how powerful Lin Yi was to absolve himself of responsibility for his escape. In He Tianzu's understanding, no matter how powerful Lin Yi was, how could a Sky-class early-phase master kill a Sky-class mid-phase peak in a second? Their strengths were completely different. How could he do that? It was like a Golden-class master killing a Mystic-class master. He Tianzu didn't believe it at all. Moreover, the most important thing was that Lin Yi lied to him before. This made He Tianzu very angry. He wanted to get back at him. He couldn't give away the blue crystal for nothing. Of course, there was also another reason. He wanted to push Su Shihan away as soon as possible. If Su Shihan was seen by his father, he would most likely ruin his plan. He Tianzu's mnemonic chant was a kind of pure yang mnemonic chant. He shouldn't get close to women as it would slow down his cultivation speed. Although he was already a peak late-stage heaven rank, he little wanted him to step into the perfection realm as soon as possible. Before reaching the perfection realm, his private life was very restricted. So, if Su Shihan was seen by He Linu, he probably wouldn't let him get close to her. He Tianzu was a lecher. Actually, in the end, it could also be explained that he had been holding it in for so many years. The children who were with him all cultivated different mantras than he did. Watching them play with women and changing lovers one after another, He Tianzu was truly envious. But because of the family rules, he could only sneak in. Even so, he was still discovered by his father and was reprimanded and placed in confinement several times. But this time, after seeing Su Shihan, he couldn't suppress the desire in his heart. He swore to get Su Shihan into bed. He couldn't wait anymore. So, he and Frio made a move together. Lin Yi heard Frio call out his name. He knew that was bad. They must know his identity already. There was no point in hiding it anymore. He quickly calculated in his mind. But on the surface, Lin Yi still got off the car obediently. He said to Frio, "I can get off and go with you, but Yang Chi-Chi is just a friend I met in the Ice Palace. It has nothing to do with her. Can you let her go?" "Sure." Frio nodded. He didn't know what kind of relationship Lin Yi and Yang Chi-Chi had. After all, Yang Chi-Chi grew up in Europe, and Lin Yi was a practitioner from China. These two shouldn't have anything to do with each other. But Lin Yi said that he met Yang Chi-Chi in the Ice Palace. That made sense. Yang Chi-Chi was very interested in participating in trials with great rewards. The association knew about these trials, but they rarely sent people to participate. It was too dangerous. The reward wasn't worth the effort. Chapter 3252. It was said that she was related to that powerful man back in the day, and so the association didn't want to offend her. Even if the Common World Assassin group wasn't much of a threat to them, and that man had disappeared for many years, it was hard to say if he was related to Chi-Chi or not. But they didn't want to start a feud if they could avoid it. After all, Chi-Chi was a member of the association. Yang Chi-Chi, leave this place. Lin Yi looked at Chi-Chi, giving her a reassuring look before telling her to leave. Chi-Chi trusted Lin Yi unconditionally and didn't think much about it. She thought that Lin Yi had complete confidence in dealing with these two, and her presence might make things difficult for him. And so, Chi-Chi nodded and left without another word. Perhaps, in Chi-Chi's eyes, Lin Yi was invincible. In the Ice Palace, the Cultivator Trade Association, and the Sky Elixir Sex Test, Lin Yi had shown extraordinary capabilities, and so Chi-Chi didn't think that he would be in any danger. After all, Chi-Chi still had to help Lin Yi gather materials in Europe in the future, and it wouldn't be good for Chi-Chi or Lin Yi if she were to get into trouble with these people. Chi-Chi was the one who took the blue crystal box, and this was what Lin Yi hinted at. Frio saw it but didn't say anything. If Chi-Chi really needed the blue crystal, then there was no need to investigate. Chi-Chi was a practitioner, and while the car was flipped and unrecognizable, it could still be driven with a push. Chi-Chi pushed the car back onto the highway and drove away. At this time, He Tianzu walked over as well. In Lin Yi's eyes, Frio wasn't a threat, but He Tianzu was. A Sky-class late-phase peak, Lin Yi didn't know if he could kill him with his current strength. Moreover, Lin Yi had been too busy recently and had not tried to activate the 10th style of the Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm. If he could successfully activate the 10th style of the Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm, he might be able to arm wrestle with He Tianzu. Lin Yi took a deep breath and looked at He Tianzu. He Tianzu, I don't think there's any hatred between us, and I'm not lying to you. If you do some research, you'll find out that I'm the boss of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. If the Overseas Cultivators Association wants to purchase a Tier 1 and Tier 2 automatic medical cauldron, it has to go through my hands. You can't avoid me, so I think we can still sit down and talk. He Tianzu frowned slightly. Lin Yi's words weren't unreasonable. Could it be that his father had also thought of this problem when he didn't want him to act? If he had acted rashly, he would have almost ruined the whole thing. Although it was important to avenge Elder Chun, the automatic medical cauldron was equally important. With the automatic medical cauldron, the Overseas Cultivators Association would be able to concoct more medicinal pills and train more cultivators. I'll make a call. He Tianzu nodded slightly and dialed Heluodon's number. Father, He Tianzu, didn't say much. He didn't mention a word about how he intercepted Lin Yi. He only said that he stabilized Lin Yi and told Heluodon what Lin Yi said. On the other side, He Tianzu nodded repeatedly and hung up after a while. How is it? Lin Yi asked. He Tianzu's answer would directly determine his next move. Lin Yi, you're the boss of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, so there's no need for you to lie to me. However, I can also tell you that the automatic medical cauldron is not only sold by your company. The Sky Elixir sect is also selling it. We can go to the Sky Elixir sect to buy it. We don't need to go through you. He Tianzu said. Lin Yi frowned slightly. Sky Elixir sect. Indeed, the Sky Elixir sect's imitation seemed to be troublesome now. They're just imitating our products. They don't have any research and development capabilities. Our second-level automatic medical cauldron will be on the market soon. Among them, I believe young master he knows very well which one has the best future, Lin Yi said. That's just your side of the story. The Sky Elixir sect is an old school of alchemy. How do you know that they don't have research capabilities? Without Butcher Zhang, I wouldn't eat a pig, He Tianzu said indifferently. However, if Mr. Lin wants to redeem himself, that's fine. As long as Mr. Lin can help me and let Miss Su Shirhan sign in my company, we'll be business partners. How about that? I'll go back and think about it. Lin Yi pondered for a while and said, Think about it. If you nod, I'll take Su Shirhan away. Then we'll consider this settled. Otherwise, pretend I didn't say anything. He Tianzu threatened. In fact, Heluodon's phone call had already made it very clear. If Lin Yi could pay a higher price, then they could work together. After all, Elder Chin's life was not as important as the overall benefits of the association. Of course, if Lin Yi didn't cooperate, then there was still the Sky Elixir sect. They could still buy automatic medical cauldrons from Lin Yi. So, this ambiguous answer gave He Tianzu a chance to take Su Shirhan down. Lin Yi didn't think that this rich kid wasn't stupid. He knew to take Su Shirhan back first. It seemed that his plan to stall for time wasn't going to work. Thinking up to here, Lin Yi sighed and said, He Tianzu, have you thought about it? You really want to go against me? Lin Yi, what do you mean by that? I was kind enough to contact the film company for Miss Su Shirhan. How is that going against you? He Tianzu said calmly. I'm sure you know what you're thinking in your heart, don't you? Lin Yi smiled and said non-committally. Okay, don't worry about what I'm thinking. This is my request. If you agree, then we'll sit down and talk. If you don't, then we'll go our separate ways. He Tianzu looked at Lin Yi as if he had control over the whole situation, leaving Lin Yi with no choice. Is that so? Lin Yi took a deep breath and said, Let me think about it, can I? Of course. He Tianzu nodded indifferently. From what he saw, Lin Yi's so-called think about it was just because he didn't want to lose face. People under other people's eaves had to lower their heads. He didn't think that Lin Yi had the courage to go against him. Lin Yi pretended to lower his head and pondered. In fact, he was chanting the chant, and suddenly he made his move. Chapter 3253. This was Lin Yi's first time activating the 10th form of Frenzy 8 Trigram Palm. Although Lin Yi couldn't guarantee success, he had to give a try. However, Lin Yi didn't dare to use his full strength. Instead, he reserved a portion of Qi. After all, even if Lin Yi could kill He Tianzu, there was still Freya Nu next to him. Lin Yi couldn't bet everything on He Tianzu. Boom dash. Fortunately, Lin Yi successfully activated it. It seemed that using the 10th form of Frenzy 8 Trigram Palm at the peak of early phase of Heaven class was still possible. However, Lin Yi could clearly feel that when this palm landed on He Tianzu's body, it wasn't as shocking as when he used Frenzy 8 Trigram Palm on other people. He Tianzu's body shook a little, and he quickly took a few steps back. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, but he didn't die. Instead, he suffered a moderate injury. Cheng Yi, hug me from behind. Lin Yi suddenly shouted. Along with his shout, he carried Su Shirhan on his shoulder. Cheng Yi was an Earth-class practitioner, so her reaction was very fast. She directly jumped on Lin Yi's back. Lin Yi started running. Under Lin Yi's feet was the wind-chasing lightning boots. Lin Yi already knew how to use this weapon. Now that he couldn't kill He Tianzu, he could only run, chase. He Tianzu didn't think that Lin Yi would dare to sneak an attack. Before this, He Tianzu thought that Lin Yi would definitely give in, but he didn't think that Lin Yi would actually attack him when he was unprepared. Although this move wasn't fatal to He Tianzu, it was enough to affect his movement and strength. Therefore, He Tianzu directly ordered Freya Nu. He quickly took out a small medicine bottle, poured out a pill, and directly put it in his mouth. Then he adjusted his breathing. Freya Nu wasn't an idiot. He was the vice leader's son. Although he usually hung out with He Tianzu, he wasn't He Tianzu's subordinate. He was only an early phase Heaven class. If Lin Yi could injure He Tianzu, then he must be a very powerful person. Although on the surface, Lin Yi's strength was only at the peak of early phase Heaven class. If Lin Yi could injure He Tianzu, then his strength was probably as high as the rumors said. But although it was very high, it wasn't very troublesome. If there were a few peak late phase Heaven powerhouses besieging Lin Yi, or a great perfection powerhouse, then Lin Yi would definitely be captured. Thinking of this, Freya Nu felt some regret. He should have advised He Tianzu not to act rashly. But now that He Tianzu was injured and Lin Yi ran away, he didn't dare to act rashly. Freya Nu, why don't you chase him? He Tianzu recuperated his body, and his injuries slightly calmed down. After catching his breath, he quickly asked, Young Master He, I'm only at the early phase of the Heaven realm. If I go after him, wouldn't I be sending you off? Freya Nu bitterly smiled. You aren't his opponent. If I go, I might not be able to come back. He Tianzu was slightly startled, but he immediately nodded. Freya Nu was right. He was only at the early phase of the Heaven realm. If Lin Yi could even injure him, who was at the peak late phase of the Heaven realm, then killing Freya Nu definitely wouldn't be a problem. At this moment, He Tianzu believed that Elder Chun had been killed by Lin Yi, but he wasn't willing. He clenched his teeth and said, Let's chase together. We can't let him escape. You deal with those two women. I'll deal with Lin Yi. Okay. Freya Nu had no problem dealing with the two women, as long as he didn't directly face Lin Yi. At this moment, Lin Yi had already run far away. Although He Tianzu and Freya Nu were Heaven realm experts, it was still very difficult for them to chase after him. Looking at Lin Yi's gradually disappearing figure, the two were somewhat puzzled. How could Lin Yi run so fast? Lin Yi didn't dare to stop for even a moment. After all, although He Tianzu was injured, it was obvious that after taking the recover pill, it was not a big problem. If he caught up to Lin Yi, it would be very easy for him to kill the current Lin Yi. After all, when Lin Yi had urged the 10th style of the Frenzy 8 Trigram Palm, he had already used most of his strength and true Qi, and the remaining strength and true Qi were used to run away. Therefore, Lin Yi carried one on his back and the other on his back, running all the way on the highway. Fortunately, there were not many cars on the highway, otherwise they would have been scared to death by Lin Yi's behavior. Although He Tianzu and Freya Nu's speed was not slow, and Lin, he had two people to drag him down. Lin, he not only had the exquisite butterfly subtle steps, but also the gale-chasing lightning boots. His speed was incomparably fast. In the blink of an eye, he had left the two people far behind. This kid is stepping on the wind-fire wheels, right? How can he run so fast? He Tianzu also used all his strength, but not only did he not catch up, but he also chased further and further away, which made him very depressed. It is indeed a bit strange. There is something strange about this kid, Fryu also said. Although he did not guess that Lin, he had a divine weapon, he could clearly feel that Lin, he was different from normal people. Finally, Lin, he disappeared, and he Tianzu and Fryu had to stop and sit in the wheat field by the road to rest. At this time, he Tianzu's phone also rang. "Hello, Dad." He Tianzu's voice was very careful. After all, he had made a mistake and made a mistake. "Tianzu, where are you?" He Luan's voice came from a phone. "Dad, I am sorry. I acted rashly. Not only was I injured by Lin, but I also let him run away." He Tianzu said gloomily. "What?" He Luan's voice was stagnant, and then he became angry. "Didn't I tell you to stop him first, and then wait for us to go over?" He Tianzu naturally did not dare to say anything about Su Shihan, so he could only say, Lin, he seemed to have noticed something. After leaving the auction, he directly drove to the highway. We had no choice but to stop him. "Oh, then you could have followed him. You gave up such a good opportunity for nothing." Lin also knew that Lin, he was a practitioner. If he ran away, it would be very difficult to catch him again. So he also knew that no matter how he reprimanded Tianzu, it would be useless. So he could only say, "Forget it." If he ran away, then he ran away. I originally wanted to use this incident to make Lin, he give up some of the benefits. Then we can also get the cheap automatic medicine cauldron. But now it seems that if Lin, he ran away, then I am afraid that he will never come here again. We have nothing to threaten him with. Chapter 3254. What about Yang Qiqi? He Tianzu asked after some hesitation. Yang Qiqi and Lin, you're probably just acquaintances, but they're pretty close. She grew up here and doesn't have much to do with the practitioners over there. Her background is a little complicated, too, so it's best if we don't touch her. He Luonin shook his head, rejecting He Tianzu's suggestion. He didn't want to offend people because of Lin, especially since Yang Qiqi was a member of the association. If he took his anger out on Qiqi because of Lin, it'd make the other members hate him. Who knew if they were enemies of the association when they made friends? If they took their anger out on every enemy they met, then there'd be no point in making friends with them. Then our cauldrons, He Tianzu knew that he'd gotten into trouble. It seemed like I can only ask for help from the Sky Elixir sect. Although I don't want to contact that person, there's no other choice. I can only ask for his help now. He Luan sighed. He'd been thinking about the automatic cauldron before, but Miracle Dr. Guan's company's cauldron had countless connections with Lin Yi. He didn't know much about the Sky Elixir sect, either, so he could only ask for that person's help. But he'd already broken ties with that person, and he didn't want to contact him anymore. "Dad, I'm sorry." He Tianzu understood his father's predicament, feeling helpless and apologetic. "It's fine, you and Frio can come back. Let's just leave this as it is. We'll deal with Lin Yi in the future. We know how strong he is now, and if he could only injure you and run away, then he's obviously not that strong." He Luonin comforted. "Yes, father." He Tianzu quickly nodded his head in agreement. He Tianzu and Frio returned to the association's headquarters dejectedly, only to see He Luonan with a dark expression on his face. "You two kneel down," He Luonan said coldly. He Tianzu was his son, but the association had its rules. Even if he was He Luonan's son, he still had to go through the motions. "Yes." He Tianzu and Frio Leonor did not argue. Both of them knelt in the hall. Although Frio Leonor was accompanying them, he had no choice. Who asked him to not stop them? "You guys should think about your own mistakes first. I'll contact the Chinese cultivators." He Luo really didn't want to make this call. It had been so many years since he left his hometown. 50 years ago, he had quarreled with his big brother. Then, 11 years ago, he successfully reached the peak of the late stage of Heaven's stage. He founded the Overseas Cultivators Association, a sect that was not inferior to the ancient sections. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to understand the bitterness of this. Although He Luonin also understood that his elder brother reprimanded him for his own good, he still couldn't untie this knot in his heart. So many years had passed. Although he knew his elder brother's number and knew what his elder brother was doing now, he still hadn't contacted him. After all, his elder brother was in the light, and he was in the dark. However, today's matter caught He Luonin unprepared. He originally hoped to get the right to buy the automatic cauldron from Lin Yi, but now he could only pin his hopes on his elder brother. After all, his elder brother had some relationship with the Heavenly Elixir sect. He Luonin, on the other hand, had no contact with the Heavenly Elixir sect at all. Arriving at a secret room, Hilwan dialed the number that he had tried to call over the past few years, but was always cut off by him. "Hello, who is it?" A deep voice came from the other side of the phone. "Elder brother." After hearing this voice, Hilwan's eyes were filled with tears. For a moment, he was filled with emotion. Warhead? After hearing this voice on the other side of the phone, he couldn't believe it and asked subconsciously, "It's me, elder brother." He Luonin originally thought that he had a grudge against his elder brother, but after saying this sentence, he buried the grudge in his heart for decades. "Luonin, where are you? How have you been these past few years? When will you come back to help me?" Now, the Five Element sect is completely under my control. In the beginning, I taught you a lesson because I was afraid that Master would be wary of me. But now I have the final say. It turned out that Heluanan's elder brother was actually Ancestor Xianxun of the Five Element sect. Back then, because Heluanan was young, he relied on the fact that his elder brother was Ancestor Xianxun, so he said some pretentious words. Ancestor Xianxun usually doted on his younger brother. However, Ancestor Xianxun was afraid that his younger brother's words would cause Master to be afraid, so he taught Heluonin a lesson. Unexpectedly, Heluonin left the sect and disappeared. Because Heluonin was only an in-name disciple of the Five Element sect and not a direct disciple, he was not very important. Ancestor Xuanxun's master did not send anyone to look for him. Because of the sect rules, Ancestor Xianxun could not search for him. This matter could only be left unsettled. Many years later, Ancestor Xianxun took charge of the Five Element sect. Although he secretly inquired about Heluanan's whereabouts, there was no more news, which made Ancestor Xianxun very regretful. As he grew older, Ancestor Xianxun also gave up looking for Heluonan. After all, he did not believe that Heluonan could cultivate very well. After so many years, Heluonan might have already passed away. After all, Heluonan was just a little playboy who relied on his elder brother's strength to run amok in the sect. He was not very interested in cultivation. But unexpectedly, Heluonan actually called. He was actually still alive. "Elder brother, I'm overseas." "You know about the Overseas Cultivators Association," Heluonin said, choking with sobs. "I know. Are you a member there? Come back and help me." "I know about the Overseas Cultivators Association. Although it is not small, it is still someone else's business." Ancestor Xianxun invited. "Elder brother, the Overseas Cultivators Association was founded by me." Heluonin smiled bitterly and said, "Is your younger brother that bad? Elder brother can take charge of the Five Element sect, but I can't." "What? The Overseas Cultivators Association is yours?" Ancestor Xianxun was shocked after hearing this. "Then, the Elder Chun who was killed by Lin Yi before was your subordinate?" Chapter 3255. Luo Duan. It's not that I don't want to help you. I want to advise you that Lin Yi is not a person to be trifled with. You'd better not go against him. Ancestor Xianxun pondered for a moment and said seriously, "Brother, what do you mean? Why is Lin Yi not a person to be trifled with? Did you listen to the rumors? I heard before that Lin Yi could instantly kill an expert at the peak of the late stage of Heaven stage, but that's just a rumor. It doesn't count." Luo Duan didn't expect his elder brother to believe these nonsense. He suddenly found it funny. That Lin, he was chased by my son until he was forced to retreat. He could only injure my son. It's not a big deal at all. As he spoke, he Luo Duan recounted the previous process to Ancestor Xianshun in detail. Luo Duan, is what you said true? Ancestor Xianshun was shocked after hearing it. In that case, Lin, he was not a threat at all. He didn't think that his younger brother would lie. Although the two brothers hadn't seen each other for more than 50 years, Ancestor Xianshun believed that he Luo Duan wouldn't lie to him on such a big matter. Of course it's true. That Lin Yi is only at the peak of the early stage of Heaven Stage. He is indeed a little more powerful than the other peak of the early stage of Heaven Stage. Being able to injure my son also proves this point. However, it's not a serious injury. A recover pill can completely solve the problem. Hiluo Duan said. Oh, Ancestor Xianshun couldn't help but fall in a deep thought. Things seemed a little unusual. You mean, Lin Yi ran overseas? Yes, Lin Yi is here. As he spoke, Hiluo Duan told Ancestor Xianshun what Lin Yi did here. Lin Yi went to look for the blue crystal. Ancestor Xianshun was slightly surprised. He naturally knew what the blue crystal was used for. It was a material that could be used by blacksmiths. Tag and Long needed the blue crystal to refine the Essence Chi necklace. However, before Tag and Long could refine it, Lin Yi had snatched away the manual and Essence Chi item. Then, he was injured, so the matter was delayed. Could it be that Lin Yi was looking for the blue crystal to refine a profound Chi necklace? Patriarch Xianshun could not be blamed for thinking this way. After all, for cultivators, the blue crystal was only used for forging weapons. There was no other use for it. As for whether Lin Yi was a blacksmith, Patriarch Xianshun did not think too much about it. In his opinion, since Lin Yi could make an automatic medicine cauldron, he might be able to forge weapons automatically. Even if he could not, it would not be difficult to forge an essence necklace. He might be able to do it using other special methods. Big brother, what's wrong? Luonan was slightly taken aback. That blue crystal can only be used by blacksmiths. No one else can. I still have a lot of it here. Big brother, do you need it? I have a lot too. I don't need it. I just suspect that Lin Yi picked up a weapon. Patriarch Xianshun shook his head and said, forget it. Let's not study this. Although Lin Yi's performance on your side is relatively weak, there are a few rumors here. They don't seem to be fake. Let me tell you. As he spoke, Patriarch Xianshun told the legend of Lin Yi to He Luonan. After listening, He Luonan clicked his tongue in wonder. He had some doubts in his heart. The deaths of peak late stage and great perfection peak late stage experts were also a fact. He did not think that Patriarch Xianshun did not confirm whether these people were dead or not. So, these people must be dead. As for how they died and whether it had anything to do with Lin Yi, he did not know. But it seemed that Lin Yi was really strange. Thinking of this, He Luonan nodded and said, Big brother, I understand what you mean. Let's forget about Lin Yi. I will not take the initiative to provoke him for the time being. Everything will wait until the truth is out. I will carefully investigate Lin Yi. Wait for my news. Patriarch Xianshun said. He was actually very puzzled. What was going on with Lin Yi? Why did the strength he showed not match the rumors? Okay, big brother, there is one more thing. Isn't the 5 Elements sect related to the Heavenly Elixir sect? Can you help me to buy some first-grade automatic medicine cauldrons? He Luonan asked. Oh, this matter, no problem. Patriarch Xianshun agreed after listening and said, This medicine cauldron was made by my son-in-law. It is only sold under the Heavenly Elixir sect's brand. I will give you 10 later. Ah, thank you, big brother. He Luonan said happily after listening. It's a small matter. Patriarch Xianshun shook his head and said, Luonan, when I am ready, you can come and get it. Us two brothers, let's get together. Okay. He Luonan readily agreed this time. Bring your son too. I have never seen my nephew. Patriarch Xianshun said. He Luonan and Patriarch Xianshun ended the call, and Patriarch Xianshun called Kong Ming over. Father-in-law, why are you looking for me? After Kong Ming came over, he asked respectfully. It's like this. Go and investigate Lin E, especially Lin Yi's battles with the Heaven Stage Masters and the process of killing the Heaven Stage Masters in seconds. Investigate them in detail. Patriarch Xianxin ordered. Oh, this. What is there to investigate? Father-in-law, is there a problem? Kong Ming was slightly stunned and asked curiously. And it's like this. Therefore, Patriarch Xianxin told Kong Ming about Lin Yi's conflict with the Overseas Cultivators Association in Europe. After listening, Kong Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. If this was true, then it meant that Lin Yi wasn't as scary as the rumors made him out to be. If that was the case, then he wouldn't have to be afraid of Lin Yi anymore. He was afraid that Lin Yi was invincible, so he didn't dare to make a fuss about it. But now, thinking of this, Kong Ming quickly nodded and agreed. Okay, father-in-law, I will go and investigate this matter now. In you go. If there is anything you can't figure out, just report to me. We will discuss it together. Patriarch Xianxin said. I understand. After receiving the order, Kong Ming excitedly went to investigate. After Kong Ming left, Patriarch Xianxin fell into deep thought. He had never thought that the Overseas Cultivators Association would be his younger brother's force. If that happened, the Five Elements sect would be even more powerful than before, and they would have a greater say in the future plan. Chapter 3256. After all, this plan, with the participation of the association, it would be a great help. Sky Class Late Phase, Peak, Full Circle, each and every one of them would be useful. Lin Yi ran with Su Shihan and Cheng Yi. He didn't know how far they ran, how many small towns they passed, and finally, Lin Yi's remaining strength was used up. Lin Yi had no choice but to stop and put Su Shihan and Cheng Yi on the side of the road. Although Lin Yi knew that the possibility of them finding him was very low after running so far, and not in a straight line, Lin Yi still didn't dare to be careless. After putting Su Shihan and Cheng Yi down, Lin Yi hid behind a haystack near an open-air farm. I'm sorry, Lin Yi, I caused you trouble. Su Shihan looked at Lin Yi apologetically. Lin Yi waved his hand. It's not your fault. He Qinzu being interested in you is just a small problem. The real problem is that I killed their elder Chan, but it's not a big deal. Didn't he run away? Is Yang Qiqi okay? Su Shihan was worried about Qiqi's safety. I'll give her a call and ask. Even if Su Shihan didn't say anything, Lin Yi was going to call Qiqi to ask about her current situation. The call went through quickly, and Qiqi's worried voice came from the other side. Lin Yi bro, how are you guys? We escaped smoothly. It's fine. Don't worry about us. You, on the other hand, will you make enemies with the association because of this? Lin Yi asked worriedly. It's fine. They won't dare to do anything to me. Qiqi shook her head. Plus, I'm not stupid enough to admit our relationship. I'm just saying that you helped me during the test. That's why I treated you well. That's good. Lin Yi nodded, letting out a breath of relief. It seemed that Qiqi wasn't as dumb as he thought she was, but it was understandable. This was Yang Qiqi's turf, and Qiqi had always been a guest during those tests. She was weaker than the others, too. Who would they bully if not her? But Yang Qiqi was from the association, and that explained why she was leveling up so quickly. The association would definitely give her some physical practitioner's body refinement medicine regularly. Brother Lin Yi, are they not chasing after you? Do you want me to scout for you? Qiqi asked. Please don't. However, Lin Yi rejected her decisively. He quickly reminded her, Qiqi, don't be careless. Although they won't dare to do anything to you, you are still related to me. It won't be good if they get suspicious. What you need to do is to take the initiative to apologize to the association and cut all ties with me. Understand? Qiqi wasn't too willing. Pretending that she had nothing to do with Lin Yi was fine, but cutting all ties with him was a little. Qiqi, listen to me. I still need you to scout for information in the future. Nothing can happen to you. Lin Yi said seriously. All right. Qiqi knew that Lin Yi probably had other things for her to do in the future. She could only nod. Also, that blue crystal, if the association asks, don't tell them you bought it for me. Just tell them you bought it yourself. Lin Yi instructed. If they ask you what you want to do, tell them that you heard that blue crystals can be used to make divine weapons. Buy them and collect them, and see if you can find someone to make them for you in the future. All right, I understand. Chi-Chi nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Also, if they ask me and Shirhan why we're here at the auction, just tell them that you're here. We're just here to watch the show, but we didn't see anything too good. Lin Yi said. All right, I understand. Chi-Chi was a smart person. She knew that Lin Yi wanted her to help him collect the other materials. If she said that Lin Yi needed it, then she wouldn't be able to participate in the auction anymore. Then let's do it. After I settle down, we'll go to Island X. We'll meet there, Lin Yi said. Island X was one of the places where Lin Yi lived when he was young. His master and mistress lived there. It had been so many years since his master left, and he never went there again. Lin Yi, Shirhan, and Cheng Yi took advantage of the dark to come to a small town nearby. They didn't dare reveal their identities, so they didn't stay in a hotel. Instead, they went to a bath center. They could rest there at night, but they didn't need to register. It was very convenient. Lin Yi's guess was right. Before Chi-Chi could even go apologize to the association, the people from the association had already come to find her. They wanted to know more about her situation. But when Yang Chi-Chi came to the guild, the chairman was very polite to her. Yang Chi-Chi, please have a seat. I've called you here because there's something I'd like to know. President He, I'm sorry. I didn't know that Ling Yi was the enemy of the association. Chi-Chi said apologetically. Please punish me, President He. Chi-Chi said apologetically. Chi-Chi, what are you doing? He Luon and waved his hand. I'm not blaming you. I know you don't know, so it's not your fault. I just want to know more. All right, go ahead. Chi-Chi nodded. It's like this. You and Lin Yi, how did you meet? He Luonin asked. Ling Yi. That's Lin Yi. During the test, he changed his name to Ling Yi. In the Ice Palace test, I was bullied. Lin Yi saw that I was a girl, alone, so he helped me out. Chi-Chi said. After that, in the Sky Elixir test, he helped me as well. So we became friends. He Luonin nodded. It was more or less what he guessed. Chi-Chi and Lin Yi could only be considered strangers who met by chance. They were just slightly better friends. They didn't have any other relationship. Then why did he come here? He came here to help Shirhan and Cheng Yi contact an entertainment company. As a host, of course, I had to entertain them, Chi-Chi said. Chapter 3257. I was the one who suggested the auction. Actually, I said that there might be some resources useful to practitioners being auctioned off, and we'll let them join the fun. Chi-Chi said, but there's nothing useful to them in the auction, anyway. That's right, Chi-Chi said. Oh, the blue crystal? He Luodong nodded. That, I just bought it to keep. Chi-Chi suddenly felt a little embarrassed. I heard that blue crystal is a material for forging weapons, so I was thinking that I'd collect some materials and see if I could ask someone to forge a weapon for me when I reach Sky Class. Oh. He Luodan paused after hearing Chi-Chi's words. He didn't think that Chi-Chi would buy this blue crystal for this purpose. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chi-Chi, the blacksmith profession has disappeared for a long time, don't you know? Even if you collect all the materials, you won't be able to forge a weapon. I don't know. Chi-Chi shook her head. Our association doesn't have it, but the ones in China don't either. One look at Chi-Chi's face, and he Luodong believed her. The information in the association was very limited, and all the practitioners here got their information from the association. The association had never mentioned anything about blacksmithing, so it was normal that Chi-Chi didn't know about it. Plus, blue crystal was one of the materials for blacksmiths, and this was a top secret. Normal practitioners didn't know about it, and he Luodong only knew a thing or two because he grew up in the Five Elements sect. As a result, he didn't think that this was what Lin Yi wanted. After all, Lin Yi and Chi-Chi weren't that close, and Lin Yi wouldn't tell Chi-Chi that he wanted it. It was a secret, and if he were Lin Yi, he wouldn't tell her anything. The only possibility was that Chi-Chi was telling the truth, and that this was what she needed. There shouldn't be any blacksmiths in China. He Luodong shook his head, not caring about this anymore. But if you want to collect it, go ahead. Chi-Chi, thank you for your cooperation. Go get your training resources for this month, and you can go back. Ah, thank you, Chairman He. Chi-Chi said quickly. He Luodong nodded and didn't say anything else. As far as he was concerned, Chi-Chi wasn't suspicious, and he only called her over to ask some questions before letting her go. Chi-Chi let out a breath of relief after leaving, but she didn't show anything out of the ordinary. She went to get her training resources and left the association. After Lin he settled down, he smiled bitterly. He wanted to go out with Su Shirhan to relax, but he didn't expect something like this to happen. Fortunately, he had the wind chaser boots, otherwise he wouldn't be able to escape this disaster. But at least he was temporarily out of danger, and the cooperation between Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi was definitely not going to happen. Lin Yi wouldn't allow them to work with companies here. Otherwise, if the association wanted to use them as a hostage and send Lin Yi to his death, it would be troublesome. This way, he'd lose some income. Thinking about Xiaoka's orphanage gave him a headache. It was too big, and it was too late to stop now. Orphans from all over the country were being sent over, and with Xiaoka and the dean's personalities, they wouldn't reject these children at the door. As Lin Yi was thinking about these things, his phone rang. Lin Yi thought it was Chi-Chi, but when he took out his phone, it was Doffing Bro from Red Conch. Doffing, what's up? Lin Yi quickly picked up the phone. Mr. Lin, it's like this. After a period of diligent investigation, I obtained some information. The addresses of the poison production bases of the Red Conches are all stored in the headquarters of the Red Conches. In the safe in the general manager's office of the Conch building, there is a document with the detailed coordinates of each poison production base. When I attended this year's headquarters meeting, the general manager of the Conch group, who is also the leader of the Red Conches, asked his secretary to retrieve the document from the safe when he was introducing the performance of the Red Conches. It was a yellow envelope. Elder Brother Doffing quickly said, however, Zhang only introduced the profits of each base. He didn't say the specific location of these poison refining bases, but I saw with my peripheral vision that there are map coordinates on it. Oh, Doffing, are you sure? This news made Lin Yi very excited. He'd been looking for Armadillo all this time, not only for himself, but also for Ziyu. Yes, I'm sure, Doffing Bro said with certainty. Good. If this is true, then I'll reward you heavily when we get back. I'll raise your strength to Earth-class late phase peak. Lin Yi said. Ah, this. Doffing Bro was startled. He didn't expect Lin Yi to give him such a generous reward. Earth-class late phase peak. If he really had that strength, then he might get a chi gathering pill from the headquarters or some other elixir to level up his training. That way, his strength would increase by another level, and he would be able to take on a more important position. With that thought, Doffing Bro said excitedly, Mr. Lin, if I can raise my strength to Earth-class late phase peak, then I can even get a position in the headquarters. At that time, I'll continue to work for you, Mr. Lin, and find out where your friends are. Okay, Lin, he said faintly. Tell me, what's the address of the Red Conches headquarters? The headquarters of the Red Conches is in Europe's Rielita town. On the Sky Crater Road, there's a red skyscraper called the Conch Skyscraper. That's the headquarters. Doffing Bro said. Rielita town. Uff. Lin, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard the name. When Lin Yi entered the spa center, he already felt that the name of the town was familiar. It was as if he'd heard it somewhere before. Now that Doffing Bro said it, Lin Yi realized that the town he was in was Rielita town. Chapter 3258. What's wrong, Mr. Lin? Brother Doffing didn't know. When he heard Lin Yi's laughter, he felt strange. Nothing. Which floor is the general manager's office on? Lin Yi asked. I'm not sure about this. We had a meeting in the conference room. As for which floor is the general manager's office on, I'm not sure either. Brother Doffing said apologetically, I can't find out about this. It's okay. I'll find out myself. Lin Yi nodded. This was a small matter. As long as he was sure that the document was in the general manager's office, it would be fine. Okay, Mr. Lin, be careful. Brother Doffing reminded. If Lin Yi was fine, then he, Brother Doffing, would get more benefits in the future. If something happened to Lin Yi, then he would basically retire from his current position. Perhaps he might even be dragged into this matter. Lin Yi hung up the phone and walked to the private room where Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi were resting. He knocked on the door, and soon, Cheng Yi's voice came from inside. "Who is it?" "Yi, it's me," Lin Yi said. As soon as Lin Yi's voice fell, the door opened. Cheng Yi was wearing a nightgown. Her hair was wet as she stood in front of him. Her wheat-colored skin was shining under the moisture of the steam. This made Lin Yi's eyes suddenly lit up. Needless to say, a girl like Cheng Yi, who was full of wild beauty, was quite attractive to men. Lin Yi was tempted once before. Now, looking at Cheng Yi standing in front of him so coolly, Lin Yi still felt a little unnatural. "Yi, are you guys showering?" Lin Yi didn't expect them to still be showering. "No, Xiao Han is in the sauna. I'll have to switch later." Cheng Yi smiled. "Do you think girls are like you, just taking a shower?" Lin Yi was slightly stunned and then smiled bitterly. "Yeah, every time Miss and Shu took a bath, they would take a bubble bath or a sauna." It was just that Lin Yi didn't think so much. "You're looking for Xiao Han?" Seeing that Lin Yi was stunned, Cheng Yi smiled and asked. She felt a little sour in her heart. Lin Yi probably wouldn't take the initiative to look for her, right? He must be here to look for Su Shirhan. "You're fine too," Lin Yi said. "I have to go out for a while. Text me if you need anything. Call me if it's urgent. Don't worry about me. Don't leave this place." "Ah, you're going out?" Cheng Yi was stunned and asked. "Yeah, there's something I need to do." Lin Yi didn't go into specifics, but he didn't need to. "Well, then pay attention to your safety. Little Han and I will wait for you here." Cheng Yi nodded and did not ask much. Instead, she softly said. Cheng Yi was wearing a bathrobe, and she was telling him that she and Xiao Han were waiting for him here. No matter how he heard it, it was a bit ambiguous. However, regardless of whether Cheng Yi was seducing him or not, Lin Yi was going to leave. Looking at Lin Yi's back, Cheng Yi sighed. Indeed, just like what Lin Yi guessed, Cheng Yi really was seducing Lin Yi. She already told Lin Yi about her identity, so she didn't need to hide anything. She didn't need to hide her love for Lin Yi. However, it seemed that Lin didn't have any feelings for her. Shaking her head, Cheng Yi closed the door and walked towards the bathroom. She wanted to talk to Su Shirhan about Lin Yi. After Lin Yi left the bathroom, he flagged down a taxi and said to the driver, "Tianqing Road." Lin Yi spoke in English, so the driver could understand him. As for why Lin Yi was going to Tianqing Road, the driver didn't ask much. It seemed that his English wasn't very good. He only knew basic conversation. But the more it was like this, the happier Lin Yi was. It was best if no one asked him. The sky had just brightened. Tianqing Road wasn't a commercial street, so there weren't many people walking. After Lin Yi got out of the car, he began to look for a red building. There weren't many buildings on this street. Soon, Lin Yi found a red building marked Conk Group on the side of the street. Conk Group? Lin Yi shook his head. Why wasn't it called Firewolf Group? But what it was called had nothing to do with Lin Yi. Lin Yi's purpose of coming here was to steal the document from the general manager's office. Lin Yi bought a newspaper on the street, then pretended to be a passerby. He walked to a bench near Conk Building, sat down, and read the newspaper like a leisurely tourist. No one noticed Lin Yi. Lin Yi kept staring at Conk Building from the corner of his eyes. But what surprised Lin Yi was that there were cars going in and out of Conk Building's courtyard, even in the early morning. This discovery made Lin Yi frown. After all, there weren't many people in a company in the morning, but Conk Group was different. There were already so many people going in and out in the morning. Would there be people at night? However, looking at the top of the building, many of the lights in the windows were not turned off. Obviously, they were turned on when it was dark, but now that it was dawn, there was no time to turn them off. Obviously, there were people working in the Conk Group at night. Lin Yi shook his head, picked up the newspaper, and walked to a restaurant on the other side of the street. He'd observed the place and found out that it was owned by a Scottish couple. He could tell from the clothes they were wearing and the way they talked to the customers. Therefore, Lin Yi chose this restaurant and walked in. There were not many people in the restaurant because it was too early now. Only 2 or 3 customers were buying things. These 3 or 2 people were even buying takeout. They did not choose to eat in the restaurant at all. After they left, Lin bought some meals casually and sat down. Then, he pretended as if nothing had happened and chatted with the couple. "Auntie, you're not from here, right? You're Scottish, right?" Lin, he asked in English. "Yeah, young man. How did you know? Are you here to travel?" The proprietress had nothing to do at the moment. When Linny spoke, she started talking. "Yes, I've been there. Judging from your accent, you should be from there. The decorations of your store and your clothes are all from there." Linny did not lie. He had been to Scotland when he was on a mission in the past. Chapter 3259. I came here to discuss business, so I took a look around on the way. "Actually, it's not for a vacation," Linny said. "I see. However, there's really no place I can recommend you to go. At most, you can walk around nearby and see the local customs," the proprietress said with some regret. "Right, what's the red building opposite for?" Lin, he asked casually. "It seems like there are cars coming and going early in the morning." "Oh, you're talking about the Conch Group," the proprietress said. "That's the largest trading company in the town. It covers almost all the trading industries in the town. The raw materials for our small shops are all supplied by the Conch Group. It's also the largest import and export company in this area. So there are people delivering goods and discussing business all night long." "I see." Lin, he was enlightened, but he had some doubts in his heart. It seemed that this Conch Group should be a company without any shady interests on the surface, but disguised itself quite well. It actually did trade for people's livelihood. However, Lin, he didn't believe that the Conch Group didn't do any shady business. Perhaps these were just cover-ups. The closer it was to the headquarters, the more careful one had to be. Otherwise, it would be strange if a large group without any formal business did not arouse suspicion. This kind of import and export trade was suitable for money laundering. As long as the shipper was also one's own people, they could quote a lower purchase price. It'd save a lot of trouble. However, this brought great trouble to Lin Yi's investigation of the building. There were people coming and going in the group, so Lin, he couldn't sneak in. He could only disguise himself as a person discussing business and enter. However, it was difficult to come into contact with core office areas like the general manager's office. In order to prevent these serious businessmen from entering those areas by mistake, there would definitely be many security guards patrolling. After all, these shady things couldn't be shown to these people. Therefore, if Lin he wanted to go to those key areas, he had to think of a way. Originally, Lin thought that he could settle it in one day. Now, he had to spend some effort. "Why, young man? You want to do business with the Conch Group too?" The lady boss saw the anticipation in Lin Yi's eyes, so she asked casually. Actually, the look in Lin Yi's eyes was fake. Lin he naturally couldn't show his true emotions on his face. "Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm also in the trade business, and that partner of mine is actually buying goods from Conch Group. If I buy from him, I'll be making less money, so," Lin he said, pretending to be embarrassed. "I knew it. How could you not know about the Conch Group, lad? So you're here for connections." The lady boss thought nothing of it, thinking that she had exposed Lin Yi's secret. All she did was smile and say, "Actually, the Conch Group's starting point for doing business is very low. If you have the money, you can negotiate with them. Just like our restaurants, we don't actually need a lot of goods each. But if a few of us work together, we can be considered quite a sizable customer. We can still get the goods directly from the Conch Group." "Oh, don't you need someone to introduce you?" Lin, he was slightly taken aback. "There's no need." The lady boss waved her hand and said, "Lad, you can go directly. There's a reception at the entrance of their company. Tell them your purpose, and they will introduce you to the relevant person in charge." "Is that so? Thank you very much. I'll go take a look now." Lin he smiled politely after listening to the lady boss's words. "It's not a big deal. Go on, lad," the lady boss said indifferently. Lin he paid for the meal, left the small restaurant, and walked to the Conch Group. Sure enough, there was a reception downstairs of the Conch Group. Inside the reception, there were many businessmen asking about something. As soon as Lin he entered the door, someone greeted him. "Boss, what business are you looking for?" A waiter asked politely. "Aquatic products." Lenny said. This was an idea that came to him after he saw a few trucks transporting seafood. It seemed that aquatic products were one of the main businesses of the Conch Group. Sir, how should I address you? The waiter nodded without any surprise and asked. My surname is Ling, Lenny said. Oh, okay, Mr. E. The waiter didn't care much about Lin Yi's name. He just registered it. Mr. E, how much do you need every month? About 30 million euros, Lin Yi said. The price Lenny quoted was not particularly high, but it was definitely not low either. The waiter's eyes lit up. They were all employees at the bottom of the hierarchy. They didn't know the true details of the company. However, their manager had already informed these people. For customers who needed a large amount of goods, the price could be appropriately discounted. As long as the customer's monthly cash flow reached a certain amount, it would be fine. Of course, these waiters seemed to be making a small profit, but a quick turnover. In fact, the purpose of the company was very simple. It was to launder money. The more cash they took in, the better it was for them to operate. Sir, a customer of your level can meet the account manager directly. The waiter quickly wrote a list for Lin E and said to Lin, you can now go to the account manager's office on the second floor and look for Manager Krieg. He will be your business manager in the future. Okay, thank you. Lenny nodded. He took the list and left the reception room. So far, everything was very smooth. Lin E successfully passed the first stage. Next, it was how to get the account manager to bring him to the general manager. However, it was a little difficult when he thought about it. For money laundering, the business manager level was probably the top level. At most, he could see the head of the business department. As for the general manager, it was almost impossible to see him. However, Lenny could only take one step at a time. Anyway, who didn't know how to brag? Lin E first drew a few big pies to see if the other party would take the bait. Lin E stood at the door of the business manager's office and pondered for a moment. He pushed the door and walked in. Immediately, a man with a crew cut greeted him. He smiled at Lin E and said, Sir, my name is Krieg. Are you looking for me? Chapter 3260. And the head of the Buffon family, old Buffon, who was now more than 80 years old, was a good friend of his master when he was young. He was also his master's disciple. Lenny could think of only him who could pull the flag. Sure enough, when Lenny brought up the banner of the Buffon family, Krieg's face suddenly changed. He looked at Lin E with incomparable respect. Mr. E, hello. Welcome to our company for business cooperation. You can rest assured that our price and quality are definitely the best in the industry. Of course, to tell you the truth, 30 million euros. I just casually quoted a number. If our business is to be launched, it is definitely more than this number. So, Mr. Krieg, would you like to introduce your department manager? Said Lin. Of course, there is no problem. Even if Lenny didn't say it, Krieg planned to introduce Lin E to the department manager. The Buffon family was a big family. This level of order, he, a small account manager, couldn't handle it. He didn't have the ability to sign it. He could only let the department manager do it. Thank you, Mr. Krieg. Lenny nodded. Under Krieg's introduction, Lin E smoothly met Red Conch's Minister of Business, Lute. This was a middle-aged man with a big belly, but with Lin Yi's intuition, this person should know some secrets of Red Conch. Hello, Mr. Nice to meet you. Lute walked over and shook hands with Lin E in a very formal manner, then smiled slightly. Please come with me. Let's talk in detail. Okay. Lenny nodded. After the introduction, Krieg left Minister Lute's office. Minister Lute asked the secretary to pour tea for Lin E. However, when Lin E saw Lute's secretary, his eyes couldn't help but freeze slightly. The incredible shock flashed away. Although Lute didn't notice Lin Yi's shock, Lin E looked at his secretary for a long time. Lute smiled slightly. Mr. E is Asian, right? My secretary is also a very capable young man. Our general manager placed him by my side to gain experience. In fact, Lute said this to express his good impression of Asians. He also wanted to compliment Lin E. After all, Lin E was the god of fortune in Lute's eyes. The Red Conches needed to launder money. If they could get on the big ship of the Buffon family, then things would be much smoother in the future. Although it was only the supply of aquatic products to the hotel, if they cooperated more in the future, they could rely on the Conch Group to purchase the other facilities of the hotel. This way, the Conch Group could obtain a large amount of cash flow. Yes, Linny smiled and said, "This young man is not bad." He was shocked by the appearance of this Asian young man. Surprisingly, it was not much different from Lin Yi's appearance after he wore the thousand-thread mask. Of course, it was impossible to say that it was exactly the same, but it was somewhat similar. This discovery made Lin Yi very shocked and excited at the same time. Since entering the Conch Group, Lin Yi had been looking for a breakthrough. He wanted to quickly get close to the general manager's office, but he didn't know where to go. However, this young man in front of him allowed Lin Yi to find a shortcut to the general manager's office. In particular, Lu told him that this young man was sent by the general manager to gain experience by his side, which was enough to show that this young man knew the general manager. If Lin Yi pretended to be this person, he should be able to enter the general manager's office smoothly. Of course, for Lin Yi, who used to be an assassin, it was easy to disguise as someone who was similar to himself. However, at this moment, Lin Yi was calm. He just nodded and got to the point. "Minister Lute, since you know my origin, then I also know some things about your company. It can be said that our cooperation is a win-win situation. I can increase the cash flow in the Conch Group, but you must give me the most favorable price." Lute was slightly stunned, but thinking that Lin Yi was a member of the Buffon family, it was not surprising that he knew these secrets. The Buffon family was originally a family that sold arms. It was similar to the Red Conch drug trafficking group, but arms were legal in some places. However, Lute believed that the Buffon family would definitely secretly do some illegal arms business, so it was refreshing to talk to smart people. Lute immediately smiled and said, "Yes, since Mr. E is a sensible person, then I won't say much. You just have to tell me, how much can your hotel group take from me in a month?" 50 million to 100 million. Lin Yi said, "However, this is only the hotels in the nearby area. If your company has enough advantages, you can also purchase hotels in other distant areas from here." "I understand." Minister Lute nodded and said, "How about this, Mr. E? Can you wait here for a while? I will go and ask the general manager, and then I will try to give you the most favorable price list. Even if you lose some money and add some freight, it doesn't matter." "Okay, then I will wait for your news." Lin Yi smiled. This was the result he hoped for the most. It seemed that Lute was an insider, and he did not intend to hide the purpose of his money laundering in front of Lin Yi. "Secretary Lu, help me entertain Mr. E." Lute waved to his secretary, then got up and left the office. "Secretary Lu, no need to be busy. I didn't sleep well last night. I can close my eyes and rest for a while." Lin Yi waved his hand, indicating that Secretary Lu did not need to prepare tea for him. "Okay, then you rest, Mr. E." Secretary Lu said quickly. Lin Yi closed his eyes. It looked like he was closing his eyes to rest, but in fact, Lin Yi was not resting, but perceiving everything in the outside world through the perception in the space of the jade pendant. Now that Lin Yi was a heaven stage master, it was easy to lock Lute's figure. Lin Yi's divine sense perception had been on Lute. Lin Yi saw that after Lute left the office, he went into an elevator. The elevator was dedicated, not an ordinary passenger elevator. One must swipe a card to enter. This made Lin Yi frown slightly. Chapter 3261. However, if Secretary Lu knew the general manager, he should also have such a card, right? Thinking of this, Lin Yi felt slightly relieved. Lute took the elevator to the 29th floor of the Conch Corporation. He walked to an office at the end of the corridor and knocked on the door. After a while, an inquiring voice came from the office. "Who is it? What's the matter?" "It's me, Root, Fanny's secretary." Lute was obviously very familiar with the general manager's secretary. As soon as he said his name, the office door opened. "Hello, Mr. Lute. The general manager is in the office. Please come in," Fanny said politely. This action made Lin Yi realize that he had found the right person. It seemed that Lute was really a core member of the Red Conches. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to enter the general manager's office so easily. But thinking about it, it was true. The business managers in the business department might not know, but it was impossible for Lute, the business minister, not to know about the group's money laundering. "Lute, what's the matter?" A deep male voice rang out. However, as soon as the voice rang out, his tone changed. "Fanny, look outside and see if anyone is following us." As he spoke, he revealed his peak late-stage heaven-rank strength, as if he was preparing to use his divine sense to sense if anyone was following them. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He had not expected the Red Conch to have such a crouching tiger and hidden dragon. Lin Yi remembered that Brother Dafeng said that the Red Conch headquarters did not have any powerful experts. Now, it seemed that Brother Dafeng didn't know many core secrets. Lin Yi also subconsciously stopped probing with his divine sense and spiritual power. His divine sense and spiritual power had already been discovered by the other party. If he continued, it might cause trouble. Since the purpose had been achieved, and Lin Yi already knew the location of the general manager's office, then Lin Yi didn't need to investigate anymore. Lin Yi didn't care much about what Lute said to the general manager. After all, he didn't really want to do business, and those trade secrets were worthless to him. Of course, on the surface, Lin Yi was still sitting in Lute's office with his eyes closed. He didn't show any abnormalities. "Dear boss, there's no one outside." Although Fanny was a beautiful secretary, she was still an Earth-class expert. Of course, with her strength, it was impossible for her to sense Lin Yi's presence. Not to mention that Lin Yi had already withdrawn his divine sense. Fanny couldn't sense anything. "Maybe I'm being too sensitive." The general manager nodded. It was only a fleeting feeling before, but when he ran the mantra and carefully searched around the office and even the elevator entrance, he found that there were no outsiders here. Everything was normal. "Lute, what's the matter?" "Boss, this is the case. The purchasing manager of the Buffon Family Hotel is here. He hopes to cooperate with us in the procurement of aquatic products." As Lute spoke, he told the general manager about Lin Yi's conditions. "In that case, this Yi Ling is here to ask for a favor?" The general manager smiled faintly after listening and said, "He gave us a large order, but he doesn't want us to make money. It's like this. From Mr. Yi's words, I can tell that he knows that we are in the drug business. These foreign trade are just for money laundering. That's why he came to us to cooperate." Lute nodded and said, "Hee, but it's not a big deal. With the strength of the Buffon family, it's easy for them to know our details. He wants to take advantage of us, and we want to launder money. It's a win-win situation." The general manager smiled and said, "We can agree to his conditions and lower it by 10% from our current lowest wholesale price. But the premise is that the monthly cash flow must be more than 50 million euros. "Okay, boss. I'll talk to him." Lute nodded. "Of course, you can ask. If he can reach a quota of more than 200 million euros, I can directly lower it by 20% for him," the general manager said. In fact, the supplier of the aquatic products was also a subsidiary of Red Conch's. It was an aquatic product breeding company. This company didn't do it to make money. It couldn't even break even. It was only because of the secret financial support from Red Conch's headquarters that they could live well. The only purpose of this company's existence was to help Red Conch's launder money. After all, the breeding cost was really hard to say. It could be said that it was profitable even if it didn't make money. It was just that the people on the same side had the final say. "I understand." Lute didn't stay for long. After reporting the matter, he left the office and took the elevator back to his own office. "Fanny, check the background of this Yi Ling for me. Ask the Buffon family if there is such a person," the general manager said to Fanny after Lute left. "Oh, boss, do you suspect that there is a problem with him?" Fanny was shocked and asked quickly. "I don't know. Maybe it's an intuition. I felt that there was a high-level cultivator investigating me. I don't know if it has anything to do with this Yi Ling," said the general manager. "Ah, okay. Then I'll contact the Buffon family in a while." Fanny nodded quickly. "Tomorrow, we will make a deal with President He of the Overseas Cultivator Association. That old thing is an old fox. I'm afraid he will play some tricks. The general manager continued. Oh, boss, you mean that this Ling is from the Overseas Cultivator Association? Fanny was stunned. Yes, I'm afraid that they are here to scout. If they are honest with us, then it's nothing. I'm just afraid that they won't be honest, said the general manager worriedly. Boss, why is the Overseas Cultivator Association in the drug business? Aren't they cultivators? They didn't touch these things in the past. Fanny was a little confused. This was also what she wanted to ask before. They are cultivators, yes, but I don't know why. They said that they are in need of money. I can't find out the details. After all, the Overseas Cultivator Association is a supernatural organization. I don't dare to investigate too much and offend them. The general manager shook his head. After hearing that, Fanny clicked her tongue. She didn't dare to ask anymore. The red conches were usually very domineering, right? However, compared to the Overseas Cultivator Association, they were still a lot weaker. After all, the Overseas Cultivator Association was an organization where all cultivators gathered. The red conches were just a drug trafficking organization with cultivators in charge. Chapter 3262. Therefore, after a perfunctory and enthusiastic response, he said that he would go back and consult the board of directors of the Buffon Hotel Group to see what the maximum purchase quota could be before giving Lute the news. Lute didn't think much. He enthusiastically sent Lin E to the door and asked his secretary, Secretary Liu, to send Lin E out of the group. Of course, this was also convenient for Lin E. He could secretly take a few photos of Secretary Liu from multiple angles. Lin E planned to disguise himself after going back. After bidding farewell to Secretary Liu, Lin E quickly left the Conk Group without stopping. What Buffon family hotel groups? Purchasing manager. These are all fabricated. Although Lin Yi's master knew old Buffon, the head of the Buffon family, he didn't want to trouble old Buffon at all. He didn't want to implicate him. After all, Red Conk was not a good person. Although the Buffon family was huge, it was not wise to make an enemy for no reason. Therefore, it was very likely that the other party would quickly investigate that there was no Ling in the Buffon Hotel Group. Of course, Linny didn't care about this. The identity of Ling was also the last time he appeared in the Conk Group. Tomorrow, Lin E would come again, but he would definitely not use the identity of Ling. Lin E stopped a taxi on the side of the road and went to the town's largest cosmetics market. Lin E came here to purchase some necessary cosmetic supplies. Tomorrow, Lin Yi's identity would be Secretary Liu. Although Lin E hadn't been in contact with these things for a long time, this was Lin Yi's old profession after all. He was familiar with the purchase. When these things were purchased, Lin E returned directly to the bath center where he stayed. Of course, before returning, Lin E checked for a long time. After confirming that no one followed him, he entered the bath center. Lin Yi's guess was right. Secretary Fanny quickly got in touch with the Buffon family. Although the Buffon family had a large business, it was still very easy to confirm whether there was a hotel purchasing manager called Ling. After all, a purchasing manager was considered a middle-level leader. The reply that Secretary Fanny got was that there was no one named Ling in the hotel group. Even in the entire leadership team of the Buffon Group, there was no such person. As expected, there was a problem. When Fanny reported this result to the general manager wasn't too surprised. He just frowned slightly and thought for a moment before saying to Fanny, go and contact the Overseas Cultivators Association. Tomorrow's transaction will be conducted in my general manager's office. Apart from President He Luodong, no one else is allowed to participate. Will they agree? Fanny faltered slightly upon hearing this. If you agree, then we'll trade. If you don't, then forget it. The general manager said, what happened today is a bit strange. I don't need to cause trouble for a business deal. Yes, boss. Fanny nodded and went to carry out the order. Perhaps the Overseas Cultivators Association was really short on cash. In order to complete this drug deal, they actually agreed to the general manager's request. After all, although the Overseas Cultivators Association was a large business, most of it was a stable real estate business. The annual income was basically fixed. If they wanted to take out some extra cash, they would have to do other business. The general manager calmed down a bit after hearing the reply from the Overseas Cultivators Association. After Lin Yi went upstairs, he didn't go straight to his room. Instead, he went to Cheng Yi and Su Shirhan's room and knocked on the door. Footsteps came from inside the room, but no one spoke immediately. Lin Yi could feel that there was someone standing behind the door mirror. After a while, the door was opened, revealing Cheng Yi's surprised face. Lin Yi, is it done? Cheng Yi moved aside and let Lin Yi in. You're quite vigilant. Lin Yi was very satisfied with Cheng Yi's actions. Yeah, once something goes wrong, I'll run with Xiao Han. Cheng Yi said. Where's Xiao Han? Lin Yi asked. She's asleep. She actually waited for you the whole night. She couldn't take it anymore, so she went to sleep. Cheng Yi said. You also waited for the whole night? Lin Yi looked at Cheng Yi and asked. I'm a cultivator. It's fine. Cheng Yi was a bit embarrassed. Thank you. Lin Yi knew that Su Shirhan didn't sleep last night, so Cheng Yi must have stayed with her. Now that Su Shirhan was resting, Cheng Yi still had to be vigilant, afraid that someone would come looking for trouble. It's fine. Cheng Yi shook her head. I've hurt Xiao Han too much in the past. Now, I can only try my best to make up for it. Cheng Yi's face suddenly changed. What's wrong? Lin Yi quickly asked. Before, Feng Tianhu called me, but I pretended not to hear it. I didn't answer or reply. I was afraid that he would ask me about what happened here. I don't know how to answer. Cheng Yi was naturally referring to the fact that Lin Yi wasn't that powerful. Not to mention killing a peak late phase Heaven Class Master. Lin Yi wasn't even a match for a normal peak late phase Heaven Class Master. Lin Yi was slightly stunned and frowned. The news of him being chased by He Tianzu would probably spread back very quickly. Lin Yi didn't believe that the association had no relationship with the other ancient sections. From the fact that they knew about the automatic cauldron, they were more or less connected to the other ancient sections. So, once the news of him being chased by them spread, then the godly ability that he had been bragging about before would be destroyed by itself. He would fall down from his pedestal. However, this was something that Lin Yi couldn't stop. Lin Yi couldn't control the mouth of others. He believed that once this news was spread, his enemies would become restless again. Wouldn't they? When he returned, what awaited him? Sigh, Lin Yi had a headache just thinking about it. Just tell him the truth. Lin Yi thought for a moment and said, since he couldn't hide it anymore, he might as well let Cheng Yi tell him the truth. Otherwise, it would be the same as harming Cheng Yi. Cheng Yi was stunned. She didn't think that Lin Yi would let her tell him the truth. Chapter 3263. That's true. Cheng Yi sighed. What Lin Yi said was the truth. Even if she hid it, she couldn't hide it. Then I'll call him back now. Okay. Lin Yi nodded and said, after that, you should rest. I'll go prepare. I still have things to do tomorrow. Okay. Cheng Yi replied. After Lin Yi returned to his room, Cheng Yi called Feng Tianhu. Yi, why didn't you pick up my call? Feng Tianhu asked. I was with Lin Yi and the others. It wasn't convenient for me to pick up, Cheng Yi said matter-of-factly. This was the most effective excuse. Oh, Feng Tianhu didn't suspect anything and continued. How's it going over there? Did you sign a contract with that entertainment company? No, something big happened here. Cheng Yi lowered her voice. Oh, what big thing? Feng Tianhu was stunned. It's like this. As she spoke, Cheng Yi told Feng Tianhu about how He Tianzu from the Overseas Cultivators Association came to harass Su Shirhan. Then, Lin Yi provoked He Tianzu. Then, there was a conflict on the road, and Lin Yi ran away in fear. Feng Tianhu was shocked after listening to it. Yes, listening to Cheng Yi's story, it sounded like a fantasy story. Are you serious? Lin Yi couldn't even defeat a peak late stage Heaven Class Master? How is that possible? It wasn't strange that Feng Tianhu didn't believe it. After all, the rumors about Lin Yi were too miraculous. This difference was beyond Feng Tianhu's imagination. It's true. Chung Yi said with certainty. Why would I lie to you about such a big thing? Feng Tianhu thought about it and agreed. Chung Yi wouldn't benefit from lying about this. Moreover, whether this news was true or not, the ancient age would soon send news about it. They would know once they heard it. Thus, he didn't question it anymore and said, Okay, I got it. You continue to lurk around Lin Yi and think of a way to ask Lin why he couldn't even beat a peak late-stage heaven rank expert. Also, what's with the rumors of instant kills? Okay, I understand. Chung Yi nodded and said, I will try my best to get information from Lin. Okay, then I'll hang up first. Feng Tianhu hadn't recovered from shock yet. He needed to digest the news and find out more. He didn't think that Chung Yi would lie to him. After all, Chung Yi had no reason to lie to him. However, this matter was too important. Feng Tianhu didn't believe it directly. He wanted to wait and see. After all, so many heaven stage experts had died. If it wasn't Lin Yi, then who did it? Chung Yi hung up the phone and was about to leave the washroom. But when she turned around, she saw Su Shihan standing in front of the washroom with a face full of shock and anger. Chung Yi couldn't help but be shocked. Xiao Han, you're awake? Yi, who did you call just now? You actually betrayed Lin Yi. Su Shihan glared at Chung Yi angrily. She woke up in a daze and wanted to go to the washroom. When she walked to the door, she heard Chung Yi talking to someone on the phone. At first, Su Shihan didn't care and wanted to walk in. But when she heard Lin Yi's name, she immediately stopped. Su Shihan jumped in fright. Chung Yi was telling the person on the other side of the phone about Lin Yi's identity. Of course, Su Shihan was very rational and didn't stop Chung Yi on the spot because she didn't know who was on the other side of the phone. If she stopped her, would it alert the enemy? Would the person on the other side know that Chung Yi was exposed? Would the other side immediately do something to Lin Yi? So, Su Shihan waited until Chung Yi hung up the phone before she questioned angrily. Xiao Han, listen to me, it's not what you think. Chung Yi was a little panicked. She didn't think that Su Shihan would wake up at this moment and hear everything she said in front of the washroom. It's not? I heard it with my own ears. How could it be fake? Su Shihan said coldly. Xiao Han, listen to my explanation. Chung Yi didn't confess to Su Shihan. She had already made up her mind, but as time passed, Chung Yi also betrayed Feng Tianhu. She didn't want to hurt the relationship between her and Su Shihan, so she didn't say anything. How do you explain? Su Shihan asked. Actually, it's like this. I have to start from that time at the orphanage. Chung Yi knew that she couldn't hide it from Su Shihan today, so she decided to tell the truth. She started from the orphanage helping Su Shihan block an attack from the Great Elder of the Black Horse Society. When she talked about that time, when Chung Yi stood up to protect her, Su Shihan's angry expression immediately calmed down. Yes, Chung Yi risked her life to protect her. That couldn't be faked. Su Shihan had always been very grateful to Chung Yi. So, the Great Elder of the Black Horse Gang came to assassinate her mother at the orphanage. Chung Yi knew about it. And the previous few assassinations, Chung Yi also knew about it. It's just that Chung Yi didn't kill her. Listening to Chung Yi's story, Su Shihan's heart also softened. Chung Yi was also a girl with a hard life. And what made Su Shihan helpless was that Chung Yi's boss was actually her own uncle. This kind of internal strife in the family made Su Shihan have no temper, only a deep helplessness. So, Lin Yi already knew about this. And it was Lin Yi who told you to tell Feng Tianhu? Su Shihan asked. She didn't call Feng Tianhu third uncle because she felt that Feng Tianhu didn't deserve to be her third uncle. Yes, Lin Yi said that this matter couldn't be hidden. Sooner or later people would find out, so there's no need to hide it anymore. Chung Yi nodded and said, Then, I've wronged you. Su Shihan sighed and said, to be honest, I really didn't want to lose our friendship. Luckily, you didn't disappoint me. Actually, I've done a lot of things to let you down, Xiao Han. I'm already very satisfied that you can forgive me. I don't dare to hope that we can be like sisters again. Chung Yi said carefully. Chapter 3264. Lin Yi went back to rest. He still has other things to do tomorrow. Let's not disturb him, okay? Cheng Yi paused and said, but, Xiaohan, if you don't believe me, you can ask Lin. There's no need for that. I believe you. Su Shirhan waved her hand and said, I'm just worried about Lin Yi. I don't know if the people from the Overseas Cultivators Association can find this place. Compared to the people from the association, I'm more worried about those ancient sections. Cheng Yi smiled bitterly. The association is overseas after all. But those ancient sects, if Lin Yi goes back, will they come looking for trouble with Lin Yi? I don't know, but it's useless for us to worry. Lin Yi should have a plan, right? Su Shirhan trusted Lin Yi more. She believed that Lin Yi should have a plan. That's right. It's useless for us to worry. Cheng Yi smiled bitterly and shook her head. After Lin Yi returned to his room, he put on the 1,000 silk mask. Then, he compared Secretary Lu's photo in his phone and began to put on makeup. Secretary Lu and Lin Yi looked very similar when he wore the 1,000 silk mask. As long as he put on some disguise, even Lu Te himself wouldn't be able to recognize him, especially people with Asian faces. In the eyes of the Westerners, they were all the same. After Lin Yi disguised himself, it was basically foolproof. As for Secretary Lu's clothes, Lin Yi didn't get it. This was a custom-made outfit from Conk Group. Lin Yi didn't have the ability to get it. So, Lin Yi planned to take it off Secretary Lu tomorrow. After doing all this, Lin Yi took out his phone. He hesitated for a moment and called Gu Xian. Boss, why did you call me? Gu Xian picked up the phone and was a little excited. Actually, the ancient era was filled with rumors of Lin Yi's awe-inspiring might. As Lin Yi's underling, Gu Xian was also very proud. If his boss was awesome, wouldn't his underling also be proud? Although others didn't know that he was Lin Yi's little brother, he was very happy. It's like this, Gu Xian. In the past 2 days, have there been any rumors about me in the ancient era? Lin Yi asked after some thought. Rumors about you, boss? Gu Xian was slightly taken aback. She pondered for a moment and said, no. If you want to talk about rumors, it's the one about you killing the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association. Apart from that, there's nothing else. Oh, is that so? Then help me keep an eye out. If there are any other rumors, inform me immediately. Lin Yi instructed. Now it seemed that the matter between him and the Overseas Cultivators Association had not spread back to the ancient era. Once it spread, he would be in trouble when he returned. He believed that even if the Heavenly Elixir sect did not deal with him, the Everyday sect and the Dongfang family would definitely deal with him. After all, these two sects had the greatest enmity with him and were almost irreconcilable. Okay, I got it, Gu Xian replied. In fact, at the same time, Kong Mingming had already found some information about Lin Yi with the help of Little Yi. It was really not easy to hide things in the ancient era from the Five Elements sect. From all kinds of clues, Patriarch Xianxin had roughly deduced a conclusion. After listening to Little Yi and Kong Mingming's reports, Patriarch Xianxin frowned. The conclusion he deduced was a little shocking, but it was reasonable. So, whether it was the Dongfang family, the Everyday sect, or the Black Horse Society, when the incident happened, the people from the blood-clad underworld sect were nearby, right? Yes, according to the whereabouts of the blood-clad underworld sect's patriarchs, we can draw this conclusion. Little Yi nodded. After all, if the blood-clad underworld sect's patriarchs went somewhere at the same time, as long as the place was not too secret, they could investigate it. In that case, it should be Lin Yi who hired the blood-clad underworld sect to kill the people from the Dongfang family, the Everyday sect, and the Black Horse Society. Speaking up to this point, Patriarch Xianxin had some doubts. This deduction was reasonable. The blood-clad underworld sect's patriarchs were at the place where the rumor happened, and the blood-clad underworld sect profession was to kill people for others. As long as Lin Yi paid enough, it was not impossible for the blood-clad underworld sect's patriarchs to take action. However, the only thing that puzzled Patriarch Xianxin was that although the blood-clothed underworld sect was an anomaly among the ancient sects, it was still a member of the ancient sections. It wasn't wrong for them to take someone's money to eliminate a calamity. However, wouldn't killing so many top experts of the ancient sects incite public anger? In the past, although the blood-clad underworld sect had accepted business, they would not accept such tasks when it involved the leaders of the sect. After all, if one killed an ordinary disciple, the sect could let it go. Every injustice had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor. They would only settle accounts with the person who hired them. However, if one killed an elder of the sect, wouldn't that be a blood feud? Patriarch Xianxun did not believe that the blood-clad underworld sect would be so foolish. Wasn't this too arrogant? Did they want to become the public enemy of the ancient sects? Even if the blood-clad underworld sect had the backing of the Five Elements sect, they wouldn't dare to do this, right? Even Patriarch Xianxun himself did not dare to easily kill the pure, heavenly master of the everyday and everyday sect. This was simply forming a blood feud. However, Patriarch Xianxun felt that even if one of the blood-clad underworld sect's patriarchs went crazy, it was impossible for all three of them to go crazy together, right? Did these three want to become enemies with the entire ancient sects? Or was there someone even more powerful backing them up from behind? Patriarch Xianxun was really puzzled. There is this possibility. Otherwise, he had a grudge with the blood-clad underworld sect in the past. Kong Mingming nodded and said, before this, Zhao Qibing hired the blood-clad underworld sect to kill Lin Yi. Patriarch Xianxun nodded. He did not believe that Lin Yi and the blood-clad underworld sect were in cahoots. There is obviously a huge conflict between the two, but what benefits did Lin Yi offer to make the blood-clad underworld sect take action? Chapter 3265. After pondering for a while, Patriarch Xianxun raised his head and asked, has the pure young heavenly lord of the everyday and everyday sect succeeded in breaking through to the great perfection realm? I'm not sure either. I heard that after Heavenly Venerate Pure Een died, Heavenly Venerate Pure Yang has been working hard to break through to the perfected stage, but there's no news. Little One shook his head, indicating that he wasn't too sure. Go and investigate before deciding if this news should be released, said Patriarch Black Earth. Yes, I'll go and find out. Little One quickly replied. Ancestor Xianxun nodded. Now, the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect had two experts at the peak of the late stage of Heaven Realm. This was an advantage that other ancient sects couldn't compare to. The reason why the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect could become an anomaly was also because of their powerful strength. Although the Five Elements sect could suppress him, Ancestor Xianxun and Ancestor Xianzhen were both peak late heaven stage great perfection experts, and Ancestor Xianxun was even more powerful than ordinary peak late heaven stage great perfection experts. But the Five Elements sect really couldn't do anything about this. With Boss Bai around, Patriarch Xianxun had to consider Boss Bai when he did things. Since they had agreed, Patriarch Xianxun would not interfere with anything related to Lin Yi openly. If he wanted to do something, he could only do it secretly. Therefore, the blood-clothed underworld sect could only be dealt with by the everyday and everyday sect, the Dongfang clan, and Dark Horse Society. However, they needed the strength to make a move. In the everyday and everyday sect, there was only one confirmed peak late heaven stage great perfection expert, and that was Ancestor Wild Bull. As for pure Yang Empyrean, he was currently trying to break through peak late heaven stage great perfection. Whether or not he succeeded was still unknown. The Dongfang family, at present, has no great master, and the most potential to hit the great perfection Dongfang Yinxing has died, and Dongfang Badeo's age is too old, has passed the peak of life. It wasn't an easy task to ascend to the great circle of perfection. Finally, there was the Black Horse Gang. The Black Horse Gang still had a supreme elder in seclusion, as well as the Black Horse Gang's leader, who had just advanced to the peak of the Heaven Realm. These two were at the peak of the Heaven Realm. However, if they wanted to kill the three ancestors of the blood-clad underworld sect with an absolute advantage, They would need at least 3 great perfection realm experts to work together. Even 3 might not be enough to kill them, but 4 would be the safest. Therefore, whether Heavenly Venerable Pure Yang could successfully ascend to the great perfection stage depended on this. It was of the utmost importance. Patriarch Black Earth was used to planning before taking action. If he did not have absolute confidence that he could defeat the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect, he would rather not release the news for the time being. After all, as long as the Netherworld sect didn't fall, it would be difficult to touch Lin Yi. After putting on makeup, Lin Yi looked at himself in the mirror. He looked exactly like Secretary Liu in the phone. After doing all this, Lin Yi walked out of the bath center. Of course, the bathing center was crowded. No one would notice whether Lin Yi was a customer of the bathhouse or not. On the side of the road, Lin Yi hailed a taxi and headed straight for the Red Conch Group. Soon, he arrived at the Conch Group. After Lin Yi paid the fare, he swaggered into the Conch Group. His current appearance was that of Secretary Liu. He believed that all the employees in the Conch Group recognized him. True enough, as soon as Lin Yi entered the company, someone greeted Lin Yi. "Secretary Liu, why are you out? Weren't you in Mr. Lute's office just now?" A staff member of the Conch Group's business department greeted Secretary Liu. Lin Yi smiled. He imitated Secretary Liu's voice and said, "I went out to do something." "Oh." The staff member just asked casually and did not suspect anything at all. He turned around and went to do his own thing. Lin Yi took the elevator and went to the floor where Lute's office was located. What Lin Yi had to do now was to find Secretary Liu as soon as possible. He wanted to knock Secretary Liu out, and then where Secretary Liu's clothes to find the general manager of the Conch Group. After coming out of the elevator, Lin Yi did not wander around. Instead, he went straight to the men's room. This floor was not like the one below. If Secretary Liu and Lin Yi appeared at the same time, it was hard to guarantee that they would not be discovered. Therefore, Lin Yi planned to wait in the bathroom. He didn't believe that Secretary Liu would always not come to the bathroom. As long as Secretary Liu came to the bathroom, then Lin Yi's opportunity would come. In the bathroom, Lin Yi began to wait for a long time. Fortunately, there were many cubicles in the toilet here. One of them was locked for a long time, so no one would be suspicious. Patience was easy for Lin Yi. He waited for more than 3 hours, and Secretary Liu still did not appear. However, Lin Yi was not in a hurry. Finally, after about 3.5 hours, Secretary Liu walked into the bathroom. Secretary Liu was peeing in the urinal. Lin Yi was not in a hurry. When Secretary Liu finished peeing and was about to put on his belt, Lin Yi quietly appeared behind Secretary Liu. Secretary Liu directly took the Fushi 9 needles from the jade pendant space into his hand. He pricked Secretary Liu's body a few times, and Secretary Liu directly fainted on the ground. After being pricked by Lin Yi, Secretary Liu wouldn't wake up for a while. Moreover, the most important thing was that after he woke up, he would have temporary amnesia. He wouldn't remember what happened before. He would have a blank memory. This was also the effect that Lin Yi wanted to confuse the people of the Red Conch. After dragging Secretary Liu into the toilet cubicle, Lin Yi quickly took off his clothes, pants, and watch, and put them on himself. Then, he locked the door of the cubicle and jumped out from the top of the cubicle. At this moment, Lin Yi had become Secretary Liu. Lin Yi came out of the bathroom. He didn't stay for long. He took the elevator directly and went to the floor where the general manager's office was. With Secretary Liu's elevator card in his pocket, Lin Yi easily passed the verification. The elevator rose slowly. After stopping on the 29th floor, the elevator door opened. Lin Yi walked out of the elevator. At this moment, there was another person in the corridor. This person was actually the general manager's secretary, Fanny. Isn't this Mr. Liu? Why are you here? Are you looking for the boss? Fanny looked strangely at Lin Yi, who came out of the elevator. That's right, Miss Fanny. Where are you going? Lin Yi already knew Fanny's name from her chess card. When he probed with his perception yesterday, he seemed to have heard this name, but he didn't know the specific spelling. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.